the Know Your Gear podcast.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the Know Your Gear, I'd say bonus podcast. I'll explain that in a second. Bonus podcast for July 3rd. It's the July 4th weekend. And so quick announcements as always. If you're watching live, there's no commercials during the live to say thank you for attending live. And also, if you see somebody with a blue name and a shield, it means they're a moderator and they're here to facilitate questions. Send them to me. Help you guys with links and just make the whole thing a more pleasant experience. So I want to thank them for their being here every single Friday, like a lot of you. I thank you guys for that. And then, of course, I want to thank the moderator. No, the moderators already thanked them. I want to thank the patrons and the channel members who have supported this channel for, 8-9 years of this podcast. It's been going on a long time. So it's been sponsored by the community. So I appreciate you guys for making this possible. It's pretty crazy. So why is this a bonus podcast? Well, today was supposed to be a pre-recorded episode. I wasn't going to be here today. It was 4th of July weekend, and we had plans to go see friends out of town and have a great time. And so what ended up happening is, last week I mentioned, somebody asked me about the missus and what she does with her time and money. Well, she shelters animals, and right now she's sheltering kittens. And so one of the kittens she was playing with the kitten and it scratched her eye, and in a bad way. So we went to the emergency room. They, of course, it got escalated from there pretty fast. They got the eye doctor involved, and so we had to go to the eye doctor a few times this week. They had to put her flap of her eye back over the cat's claw. Remember, you got to understand, cats are like ultimate predators. The little kitten sliced her eyeball, and literally the flap came out open. So obviously it's pretty bad. She couldn't see out of it. They're saying the prognosis is looking pretty good. It looks like we'll know something for real by Monday, but right now she's healing each day. She does not still have vision in that eye, but it's blurry, but they're worried about scarring and stuff. So long story short, we decided it was not a good idea to travel and go see friends. So we decided we're chilling here. And then she said, why don't you go ahead and do the show? And because all she's doing is resting. So she's resting and I'm doing the show. So now we have a live show. So it's a live show, which really made me kind of have to throw this show together. So if a show feels thrown together today, it was. So maybe I shouldn't have said anything. You guys wouldn't have known. You'd be like, what a great show. And I'd be like, But instead, it's going to be crazy. Okay, we have a lot to go into. Let's go into some of the topics and questions. First, the first thing I got emailed from you guys this week, multiple people sent this to me, including the patrons, said, did I see the AI videos that Rhett Shull had talked about? I guess Guitar Samurai and Rick Beato had done videos as well. So let me explain real quick what that is and then my take on it for whatever reason. So apparently, if you know the Bad Guitarist podcast, which is a very good podcast, I subscribe to their podcast. I believe they're local in the Phoenix area like me. And I was listening to them, as I do. I listen to them podcasts. I like audio, so I just like listening to them. And they actually kind of make me laugh because he talks about gear and his wife gives like a critique I think most wives would give. So it's pretty funny. Sometimes it's almost like satire. It's really good, right? I don't think it's on purpose though. I think it wouldn't be normally like if your wife was, it's kind of like sometimes when I'm trying to explain to Shauna why something's important gear wise, that face that only the person who loves you can make, which is, I love you, I just don't know why, and I wish you would stop talking about this. But anyways, they had brought it up, the AI thing. Now, what's funny about that is when they brought up the AI thing, let me get into it. There's some AI guitar channels. So, Landon Bailey reached out and said, hey, did you see all the kerfuffle? And I sent him a link that I've seen dozens, if not dozens and dozens of AI channels. And I really don't care. I just got to tell you, if you don't want to watch AI channels, don't watch them. The end result of what I saw with Rhett's video was obviously they used his background and his likeness a little bit, like his shirt and clothing, things like that. To make AI videos. There's a couple of things that I think are important about the AI videos to know. First of all, you're supposed to disclose in every YouTube video, which is why I prefer YouTube to most other platforms. If there's AI in the video or if it's dominated by AI, there's an AI button you click. First, that's the first thing. So the reason is I think it restricts monetization. I don't think it stops it. I think YouTube said it doesn't monetize videos. But what I've learned doing this for a decade is everything you're clicking in those screens, as someone who's created screens like that for companies like YouTube, like these kind of companies, they're for sorting purposes. In other words, it's an equals to. So in other words, if a content creator says, yes, it has AI content, I'm pretty sure what that's going to translate to is advertisers who are paying for ads can say, we don't want to be in front of videos or in videos that have AI. Just like if you click, the video is monetized, I'm sorry, if it's you have ads, a sponsorship. So for instance, let's say, a guitar company pays me to do a video. I can click that this video has been has an advertiser in it, in other words, it's sponsored, and then some advertisers might want to opt out of that type of video. Maybe they don't want to be in a video, which generally speaking, they don't. So, they don't want to be in videos that have ads or sponsors. So anyways, so there is a sorting thing for it. I'm sure the people doing a lot of the AI content are not doing the right thing, as like what I've seen with all the AI stuff so far. It isn't here, unfortunately, curing cancer. It's here making crappy videos that are just slightly more crappy than some of the real made videos, but still crappier. And we're seeing that everywhere. I have a bigger problem. Me personally, what I have an issue with AI is what I'm seeing a lot of videos. And again, I'm just giving you my perspective, is a lot of what I call AI scripted videos. I've learned this the hard way doing this. When I started going to these events with other YouTube channels, and there's a lot of them that I made friends with, and there's a lot I haven't, and there's reasons why. Because I learned some things. First of all, the first events I went to, I thought I was going to hang around with my peeps. Like, oh, these are people who love guitar like I do, and they can't help stop obsessing about it. And what I found was some of them just figured out that there's money in YouTube, and this is something they did. So there's not a lot of those, but there's a few of those. The other thing I learned is there's a lot of people who are authorities, but they don't know anything without a script. They have a script. They need a script. My first experiences with this was when we were doing videos as a collective group of YouTubers. I was being told I'm like, hey, where's so-and-so and so-and-so? They're not here. And they're like, oh, they can't do videos without their scripts. And I was like, oh, I understand it because there's some people who do it magnificently. A perfect example of that is Paul Davids, which is an amazing channel. Paul Davids, he does scripts, but I've been on his videos. He's done videos. He just films everything and then he puts it together in a studio and then he writes out his thoughts. So he's elegant and not like me going, what, right, huh? Right? He does it in a beautiful way. But there's some people that literally can't do anything without a script. And what I've learned now with AI is now there's a lot of what I call AI scripting. In other words, people just going into chat and saying, hey, write me a script on the 5 best guitars that I could buy for $60. And then they just read it. And they're reading the script. So I'm I go out of my way now in videos like this podcast to actually be physically talking in front of you when I'm giving some important information, so you know that I'm not just reading a spec sheet. And I try to do that. That's another reason why this show went live. One of the things that started when I started coming up with the idea, like, hey, I want to do a QA show every week, like everybody else was doing at the time. I was going to pre-record it like everybody else. And then I started noticing some trends that I didn't like. One of them was, so the 5 companies who reached out to me this week wants me to talk about these products. And I'm watching pre-recorded QAs. And then ironically, they're all like, oh, you guys asked me, how come I love Blackstar so much? And I'm like, that sounds suspicious. So I thought, well, let's do them live, right? So live, although I can take stuff like I can do questions that are emailed to me from patrons and other places. At least you can interact here and I can read in real time what you guys are thinking and saying, and we can get some real momentum. So that being said, on the AI front, what I think about AI is what I think about everything. There's always been low hanging fruit content and better content out there on the guitar platforms. AI would just make it easier to do. People, I know some of the concerns is that people are going to fall for it. Well, you're going to need to wisen up a little bit. It's going to get trickier. It's not going to get easier to detect it. It's going to get harder. So hopefully, people will, click the right buttons on YouTube. But more importantly, if you like a content creator, if you like someone and you relate to them, maybe subscribe to their channel. It's not going to take long for a lot of AI content to become dominant in the platform. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. I've told you guys this before. I think my attitude about this is pretty simple. Thought I was going to make it on YouTube at least 2 or 3 years. It's been like 7 past that, maybe, right? So every day I'm like, is this the last day? Maybe, so it's not like I would ever be like, oh no, what am I going to do? I've had I'm pretty sure I knew what my exit strategy has been for it's coming up on a decade. So I promised, on a side note, I promised the wife about 4 or 5 months ago that I would stop every week going, I think this is the last episode. And now I don't bring that up anymore. But up until about 3 or 4 months ago, I would tell her every week on Friday, I go, I don't know if anyone's going to care about the show this week. But anyway, so back to the AI stuff. The things I can tell you, somebody actually made a really funny comment, made me laugh. Somebody says, how do we know that the AI Rhett Shull is not the real one and the Rhett Shull that we see is AI? And I thought 2 things. First, I thought, well, I've met Rhett twice. I met him twice, I think both times at Sweetwater. Or I met him once at Sweetwater, and maybe I went by Boutique Amps distribution, but I met him twice. And then I thought, I'm like, he was real, so I saw him in real life. But then I thought, he did say something strange to me once. I said, hey, Rhett, what do you think of that cool Strat? And he said, that's a great Les Paul. And I said, no, Rhett, it's a Strat. And he said, oh, good catch. You're right. That is a Les Paul. I'm just kidding. That's an AI joke. So yeah. So I can tell you this. Rhett Shull is a real person. I met him. So that's how I can tell you that. And then as of people copying stuff, I guess that makes sense. You would copy the channels that do so well. But it does bring on a secondary thing to think about. One thing that I don't think a lot of people discussed in their discussions of the AI Rhett Shull, which is, a lot of people talked about monetizing the channels, and I don't think to this day, it's weird to me in 2026, people don't understand that the majority of any large relevant YouTube channels, relevant meaning they're still moving the number, because there's a lot of large channels that, millions of subs, but they can't get more than, a couple hundred views on a video. They're not really making money on YouTube anymore. You understand? They're selling stuff. That's the concept. Rhett has his lesson programs, Music is Win has lesson programs. Tim Pierce has lesson programs. A lot of it's going to be lesson programs. Some companies have, they sell guitars like Ola England. So the content really doesn't have to make money. It's just the delivery, or I would say delivery, the vehicle for selling their product. So what I thought was interesting that no one really caught on is that the AI that was copying the YouTubers like Rhett Shull and stuff, it was actually copying the business model, which is buy my lesson courses. So I thought, it's interesting that the person who created the AI knows that's actually the real money. There's no YouTube money, there's no YouTube money that's ever going to hit the numbers in the guitar world, like selling product. I mean, there's just no way. There's just no way at all. I've said this before. Sponsor videos will always pay more than YouTube ad revenue, and if you have a product to sell, it'll always outsell any sponsors, which is why very few channels that have a product to sell have sponsors anymore, because it's like, why push your direction one way? Like, for instance, if I had the Know Your Gear guitar lesson program 101 on sale this weekend for 4th of July for half off, why would I bring up affiliate links to you guys? Because you'd be clicking on those and spending your money there, where I would get 4% of an affiliate click, where I could get 100% of a download click at a much higher conversion rate, because people that are watching the channels tend to be more connected to the channels. So I thought that was interesting that the AI, that's what I think the AI is really after, is trying to get those, you to click on downloadable products. So, and then my concern of that is that also, sadly enough, could mean fraud. Like, in other words, you could be giving your credit card information to a crazy third party somewhere in the world. So I thought that was a little on the scarier side. I thought that was the only thing I would be cautious if, as you guys as viewers to be aware of, is maybe pay attention to that as well. So it's why this ties in. This is a great question. It tied in, and I'll grab into the early riser question. Somebody gave a question, and I'm going to find it right now. And it was, they basically, I can't find it, but it ties in right now. So it makes some sense to bring it up. I'm scrolling just to see. I wanted to give you credit for the name. But anyways, it was, they noticed that I work with Guitar Center for affiliate clicks and Sweetwater, which are obviously two competitors, but not Thomann. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when it's talking about, suggesting things. The reason I don't suggest Thomann, I've never worked with Thomann. I've never had an affiliate link with Thomann that's ever been published. I don't buy from Thomann. That's all. It's not a personal, like, I don't buy from Thomann. It's, I don't buy from Thomann. So I don't suggest any affiliates that I don't buy from. So my affiliates, so you guys know, so we're just up front about it. Musician's Friend and Guitar Center, because those are two companies I buy from. Sweetwater, because it's a company I buy from. StewMac, because it's a company I buy from. I do have an affiliate with Fender, but you don't see it very often because I don't really buy direct from Fender. If I buy Fender, I don't buy direct. Although the reason I have an affiliate link is because same reason for a second, I think I had a Thomann affiliate link. They set you up with it and then they send it to you and then you decide if you want to use it. But my point is, I can tell you this, all the affiliates you see that I put, Amazon's one, I put Amazon affiliates as well. Every affiliate that I give you guys, I actually buy from them and I spend more with them than they send me back in revenue. Does it make sense? So it makes it easy for me, which is why I've turned down Temu 11,000 times. In fact, if I was opening my phone right now, there is a Temu email in there. They keep hitting me through Instagram, and Temu really wants you to promote Temu. And again, it's like Thomann. I'm not here to argue any of that stuff other than tell you that I don't buy from Temu. I don't have a real reason for that. I just don't buy from them. I haven't done it. So if I don't buy from them, I don't use their links. In fact, the main reason, just so you know, that I have affiliate links is it's where I buy all my stuff. That's how I get my discounts. So that's why I don't care if you use them or not. So I'm using them. I'm doing pretty good. In other words. So if I buy from Guitar Center, I click my Guitar Center link. I buy through my own affiliate link, and then I either pick it up at store, or have it delivered. Same with Sweetwater. I get a discount for buying from them. It makes sense. Like I said, that's why I use those. Okay, let's go to an early riser question. Unless I see somebody that has any wants to respond to any of that stuff I said. This one came from Mythical Snow Creature, who says, what is the best way to learn how to use an amp? I have a Fender Mustang GTX, and there are way too many things on there for me to even know where to start. I know modeling amps especially can get a little confusing because there's so many things, and they kind of purposely load you up on a lot of stuff. So you go into a preset, and there's going to be so much reverb, so much delay, so much chorus. It's going to be over top. I would just go into whatever the parameters are, whether it's the digital knobs or the physical knobs. Just go ahead and just start with a basic clean channel. Just get yourself something really clean. Take the flanger, the reverb, the delay, all that stuff off. Turn the gain down. All those amps are going to be pretty easy to figure out with the save function. It's always usually something like hold down the save for a second. It'll flash. It's pretty straightforward. You can look in your manual, but most of them operate in a very consistent style like that. But always start with a good clean sound. And then once you have that, you kind of get a sense of this is what the amp sounds like, because ultimately understand that all the effects and gains and distortions and fuzzes and all that crap you're going to hear, it's on top of whatever that bass clean sound of that amp is, right? That's the amp. So when you're if you have the gain down and you're just your EQ straight, so your bass, treble, and mid-range are at 12 o'clock, you're gonna hear what the speaker sounds like, what that box sounds like, because those have physical sounds. They can digitally manipulate so much stuff, but not physically the speaker, the way it sounds, and the box, the cabinet. So you'll get an idea like, okay, this is the amp. Now let's set another preset and now maybe add some gain. And then if you want to do some reverb too on both those, that's fine too. But I would ditch all the effects. Keep it simple. It's why of all the amps I've used over the years, I keep going back to like the Boss Katana, because it's just so simple as a platform, right? I'm like you guys, I like the digital stuff. I play with it and I go, this sounds great. And then I go, but ultimately I don't need, 6,000 sounds. I need one good sound. So, Satchel says, hey, I think the main issue with Rhett's video is basically stealing his likeness. You know, I don't agree. So I'm just obviously, look, but guess what, Satchel? We could still be friends and have a beer. I don't think the guy looked anything like Rhett. So I didn't watch any of those videos thinking, oh no, this is, so you know, the most knocked off channel, by the way, I sent him to Landon Bailey, is definitely 5-Watt World. That guy's, his name's Keith, I think. That guy's channel is the most knocked off. All videos are essentially historical. I sent Landon like 2 or 3 links, just the 2 or 3. I found 10 now YouTube channels where it's just the history of a product, because you can go into AI and just like write me a script about the history of Carvin guitars, the history of PV guitars, give it 7 fun facts. You just put in all your instructions, and then AI will grab all the background images and all that stuff, and then you could either talk and they can change your voice, or you can just use an AI voice. So what I'm saying is, just like what I think about anybody who copies, like Fender's whole thing about, hey, we're being copied by the Silver Sky. Look, I say it all the time. It is a copy. The Silver Sky is a copy of a Strat, but I'm not confused. I don't think the Silver Sky is a Strat. I wasn't confused looking at that guy going, oh my God, what's Rhett Shull doing another channel for? Like, I think ultimately, I've always said this, when it comes to trademark law, copyright law, all that stuff. 1, as always, you got to say this, I'm not an attorney. But 2, I only look at it from a consumer point of view. If the consumer is confused by it, then it's wrong. It's causing damage. Perfect example, fake Rolex watch. If you go somewhere and somebody says, hey man, my wife's divorcing me and I got this $30,000 watch, I'll sell it to you for $300, and then you buy it and then you find out that's a fake Rolex. Obviously, you've been defrauded, and it was easy to defraud you because even though you didn't know the nuances of the movements and all the things that these jewelers know, it said Rolex on it. It looked like a Rolex. That was very confusing. So that's why I would go, okay. But if some guy held up a Seiko watch and said it was a Rolex, I would be like, hey, maybe you should read. Right? It's like, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying I wouldn't feel bad for you. I'm just saying, again, I think it's about a point of confusion. So again, I can see why, look, I'm going to get knocked off. Everybody's going to get knocked off on YouTube because that's how AI works. And I've said this before about all knockoffs. My only complaint with knockoffs is if it's causing confusion to the customer, because ultimately that's always going to be where somebody's going to get defrauded, right? I've never thought a single cut PRS is a Gibson Les Paul, but I don't like Chipsons because it says Gibson on the headstock. That's what I don't like about them. So, this Marshall behind me is a Marshall. It's not a Friedman. You know how I know? It says Marshall on it. Does it look like a Friedman? It looks like a Friedman. I have a Friedman in the other room. Looks exactly like that. So who's, there. All right. So that's my point on that. I could get why it doesn't make him happy. On a positive note, the video wasn't horrible. The AI videos, they were boring, but they weren't horrible. So it could be worse. It could be much worse. Let's see. Okay. So anyways, that's my take on it. I think that's all you guys wanted. So we'll go with that. Let me go into some of the Amanda questions. Amanda's grabbed some, and then I had some from last week that I missed. This one came from Mystical9289, who says, hey, I've been thinking about the new Taylor acoustic with that fancy neck. Yes, he's talking about the, I keep forgetting the name of it. It's the neck. I have one right here. It's where the neck you can adjust it so you don't have to do a neck reset. Action control neck. I'm sorry. It's like not the best name, I think. Sorry, Taylor. You should call it never reset neck. I don't know. Anyways, he's saying, hey, he's thinking about getting one with those fancy necks. Sure, they go all the way down to the 3 Series with those necks. Will putting locking tuners interfere with it in functionality? Nope. In fact, I will be putting locking tuners on this guitar eventually. I've done it on my other Taylors as well. So I'll probably put some hip shot locking keys on it because, like I said, what ultimately happens to me is if I don't have locking keys on a guitar, when I snap a string, I just don't play the guitar. And then, of course, the strings get crusty. I don't play the guitar because I go to restring it and I go, I don't got 10, 15 minutes to do that. So it's easier for me to justify, hey, don't be such a lazy ass and get up and go reach your guitar if it has locking keys. So I'll be doing that. I'll be putting hip shots on mine, like I've done with others. I usually use Spurzels for some of them back in the day, but I don't know. I don't have a particular reason why I did that. I use hip shots now because I think they're reasonably priced and I like the functionality of them. But yeah, you can do that. Let's see. Poodle. I have no idea what happens after Poodle. Poodle guitar there's just so many words and letters that are mushed together here. He says, hey, Phil, why does Guitar Center Musician's Friend, that's the same company, by the way, not tell you the weights of their guitars, unlike their competition? Because Jack Higginbotham said, no one knocks you off if it's harder or costs more money. So in other words, it's very difficult. What Sweetwater does is very difficult. Pulling out, remember, they ship 1,000 guitars a day out of Sweetwater. So not all the guitars do they take pictures of. As you know, they only take pictures of guitars over $399. That's current. They used to be $299, but inflation. And then I would say, I don't know their numbers exactly, but let's just say that 30-40% of their guitars are probably under $400. Sure, going to be a lot of those guitars are going to sell. So if you do that math, it's easily to say 500 guitars a day are shipping out, which means they have to have them ready, which means they are pulling guitars out of boxes. They are going through them, taking photos of them. It's a whole process. That they have a whole team of people. If you haven't seen my video on the 55-point inspection, look. And again, everybody has an opinion about the 55-point inspection. Like I said, I think I cleared it up in my video. It's exactly what they say it is. It's them taking a few minutes, in fact, under 8, to assess the guitar, see if there's anything they can figure out what's wrong with it, put it back, get some pictures of it, put it in a box, and ship it out to you. So well, actually, they don't ship it out to you. They put it back in the box. It goes in the warehouse, and then when you buy it, they ship it to you. It takes too long. I think it would be a much better system if you bought it, then they pulled it out of the box, then they assessed it, then it did all that stuff. But I understand, for a cost of money and time, they do it the way they do it, which is once it's delivered to them, they pull the box, inspect it, do photos of it, weigh it, and then put it back in the box. And that's why sometimes they can be sitting for months in the boxes and things could happen to them. And you go, how did this happen? You're like, well, sometimes it's not unforeseen. It's sitting in their warehouse. Their warehouse is climate controlled, by the way. This ties into another question somebody asked me. Somebody didn't ask me. Somebody told me that you always want to make sure you get guitars from Sweetwater from Indiana and not Arizona because it's dry climate. They do not ship any guitars out of Arizona, so none. The reason is they don't own the building that's in Arizona. The building that is in Glendale, Arizona is a rented building. It's 250,000 square feet. It's half the size of the Indiana facility, and it carries pretty much everything but guitars in it. And the main reason is it is not in the Indiana facility. It has got a humidification system throughout the entire building and a climate controlled. So it is climate controlled. They have a set of temperature and they set a humidity setting for all the guitars. And they do that so that even when the guitars are moving around and being shipped or anywhere, the guitars don't shift because, again, they're kept in this climate control. So because they don't currently own that building, they did tell me that that if they decide that the Arizona thing is a good idea, they'll eventually probably build their own building. And at that time, they'll build a building like what they have in Indiana. And then at that time, they would do guitars. My guess is that I don't remember the year that they moved into the Glendale, Arizona building. It was during COVID, so obviously it's post 2021 or 2020. My guess is they're going to be in it for at least 5 years. Here's why: because it can't be a coincidence that they're in a building that's 250,000 square feet. It could be, but probably not. In Arizona, I believe if you move a company here into a building that's 250. I don't know why I keep saying 25. It's 250,000, right? It's $250,000. It's a 250,000 square foot building. If you either build or occupy as a new company coming to Arizona, you can get a tax credit for 5 years. So that's a way that Arizona is always. Only reason I know that is because I worked at a corporation and we specifically did that. We specifically went into a building that was bigger than what we needed because it ended up being cheaper in the tax benefits, and so. And then we waited 5 years, and at the 5-year mark, then we leased the floors that we weren't using, which we knew that we were going to do that from the get-go because of that reason. So I imagine there's some kind of deal like that with Sweetwater. So anyways, Sweetwater's not shipping guitars out of Arizona. But back to Musician's Friend and Guitar Center. They don't pull stuff out of the boxes. They don't inspect them. They don't check them out. They don't take pictures of them, and they don't weigh them. It's expensive to do that. I can't even get a lot of small builders or small dealers to do it. I'm constantly trying to buy a guitar from a small dealer, and I'm like, hey, I hate to bother you, but can you tell me the weight of this guitar? And they're like, why? I'm like, well, because I don't want to give my money to Sweetwater. I'd like to give it to you because you're a small business. I'm trying to help you out, asshole. You know, that's what I want to say. I never say that. I always say, oh, I understand. But really, so you know, if you're a small store and I've talked to you, just think that's what I'm really saying. Because I'm really saying, I want to give you the money, but you got to give me service like I can already get from Sweetwater, is what I'm saying. I'm not going to pay you the same amount of money for less service just because I want to donate to the cause of small business. Like I said, I support good business, whether it's small or large. I'd rather support good business. And if I can support a small business that's a good business, I think that's more beneficial. But yeah, my understanding would be that Guitar Center and Musician Friend are not going to be doing that anytime soon. If you guys watch my video, I did a video yesterday of a Martin guitar, and I've talked about this before because the guys at Guitar Center told me, the marketing team told me that Musician's Friend's becoming more of a discount, kind of like a outlet store for Guitar Center is what I think they see the future of it as. Again, I'm not saying that's all it will be, but that's definitely what they're trying to do. And it's legit because the Martin I did a video of yesterday was like 22% off, which is a legit discount on a USA made Martin guitar. I mean, that's, you know, you guys know fake sales are like 5%. Okay sales and good sales are 10%. 15 is pretty good. When you see 20% discounts in our industry, that's usually pretty good. It means that's really dipping into the pockets. So, but yeah, so that's why they don't do it. Which is why I tend to not buy as many guitars from Guitar Center. I try to only buy ones that are physically in the store. I just buy my amplifiers and pedals from Guitar Center, especially used pedals. I buy a lot of used pedals from Guitar Center. Although Gear of the Week, we'll have something interesting to say about that. Okay, SB says, I was charged $250 for a Pro setup. I like how you put Pro in quotations. Pro, okay. Setup on my acoustic guitar to lower the action and some uneven frets. I was shocked at the price. Is that a reasonable price? I don't think it's a reasonable price. I think the prices are reflective of all the pricing that's happening to all of us. You know, it's really tough. You know, first of all, everything is about your market and where you are. So of course, you know, if you're doing setups on guitars in LA versus, you know, a small town, you're going to have different costs. So you're going to have different charges. That's just how the reality of labor is. Labor is usually connected to location, right? I would expect where I live, where there's tons of growth and the entire state seems like it's under construction because it's growing so fast. I think it's almost doubled its population in like 5-6 years, something like that. You know, a plumber coming to your house is very expensive. And when you don't like what they got to say, which I don't, but they come out anyways, and I pay them anyways because it's either do it or they don't come out. They don't have any time. So I think that's what's happening with repair. I can tell you this. I know repair is pretty dicey out there because two of my favorite repair shops in town, which is really tough. A lot of people ask me all the time, like, hey, Phil, what repair shop do you recommend? What repairs? You know, that they know the Phoenix area. The two that I actually know, and well, I don't want to say actually know, I know a lot of them, but the ones that I know the best and I trust the most and the one I recommend have both, who don't, by the way, either one of them don't talk to each other and not even on the same side of town, which is only important to this last part, have both asked me personally as a favor never to mention them as a recommendation because they're too busy now. They're like, dude, if you did a shout out, I'd probably get 20, 30 people. I can't even handle what I got now. So, and I'm like, so I understand. It makes sense to me. When I stopped doing repair here, I was so backlogged. It was so hard to justify taking a day off. When I took one day off, I would feel so guilty because I'm like, I just knew it was just, you know, if I worked 7 days a week, I still couldn't keep up with demand. So my point to you, SB, is it depends on your area. So if they're, you know, everyone's backlogged and they're really good, I guess they're going to charge whatever you're going to pay because they're just backlogged. Do I think that's a reasonable price for a pro setup? No, but I paid $700 to a plumber a couple months ago to basically change out a small part, and I was in shock for that. So, I mean, it is not saying it's good. I'm just saying, you know, look, things cost what they cost. But I would imagine in most cases, I think also too, oh, why am I talking like this? One of the other things that's happening too is because companies like Sweetwater and stuff, big, and PRS, they got the PTS shop and stuff like that where you can have stuff done to your guitars. These places post their prices and they're really high. And I think when some of the smaller shops see that, they go, wait a minute, I'm charging $60, they're charging $250. I need to be somewhere, somewhere higher. And I think they single-handedly raise prices. I believe that Sweetwater, just specifically Sweetwater, single-handedly raised prices. And here's how I know. Towards the end of me doing repairs, I made price adjustments twice in a period of like 2 to 3 years, which were nowhere near what your prices you're talking about. I went from like $40 to $60 to $80. And I did that just off of hearing what Sweetwater and other places were charging. I was like, what are they charging? $150, $200. And I was like, and I'm like, well, I should get at least half that. So, and then I made the adjustment and no one flinched. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's what it should be. So, and Andre wants to know, do I own any really pointy guitars? I own, like, my physical collection. I own one kind of pointy guitar, which you'll see this month in about a week, maybe sooner. I'm looking at the launch date. Other than that, no, I don't really own any pointy guitars. I do have some pointy guitars here that are for deep dive videos and stuff like that, but they're not in my personal collection. This guitar is one that I wanted personally. So and it's not really pointy in the way you would think it is, but to me, it's pointy. I'm not a pointy guitar person. I'm more of a, Strat-shaped looking Nuno's, Strat-shaped Music Man, Strat-shaped, things, telly-shaped stuff. So contours. I like comfort. Ben wants to know, what would I do to make a PRS SE NF53 neck feel more like the USA neck? It's not constructed much differently in the way that it feels. You could take a white 3M Scotch-Brite pad, or you could take some steel wool, but you could probably use the 3M pad. It looks like Scotch-Brite. It's white. They come in different colors. You can go to Stu Mac and look at them, and then go buy one on Amazon. I buy them in bulk off Amazon. So, they're so cheap on Amazon that I bought like a 10-pack, and I thought what I bought was like 10 this size. They were 10 the size of like 11 by 8 sheets of paper size. There was 10 of those. I had to cut them up in sections, and I have like 2 years supply now. If you would rub down the neck with that and the sides, pretty good. Maybe polish the fret ends a little bit more than they do in the Indonesia factory. They're pretty good in the Indonesia factory, but of course, time spent wise, the USA production would spend just a little bit more time polishing the ends of the frets and rounding them. But I actually don't find that they feel much different now. Not that neck specifically. I could detect more of the Indonesian gloss necks versus the gloss USA necks. I can feel a little bit more difference in that. Not a lot, but difference in the finish. We're not talking about the shape. Typically, the PRS SE necks are smaller. So that's how I would detect that they're smaller. But the NF53 neck, I thought neck was pretty close to the USA in feel. So if you're A-B'ing them, you'll notice differences, but I didn't notice enough to where I was like, no. So this one is from Mr. Rowe. It says, hey, Phil, why did I yell it? Mr. Rowe. I think I was so excited. I caught the start and finish of the letters. Phil, regarding plec guitars, if only 2 frets are too low, do they level all the frets? No. So generally speaking, on a plec, it's going to level only the frets, which is why one of the benefits of the plec is that it's not going to take and just grind them all down. That's essentially what we do as techs, which is why sometimes a tech is going to beat a plec in the concept of just taking everything down, because again, you're going to have all your frets leveled to a certain height and then crowned over. But no, in my experience with plec machines, most of them they're usually set to just take care of the frets that are high, and they don't necessarily take the lowest one and then bring everything down to that. So, but again, like they say, it's the plec operator. Sometimes I'm sure the machines can work different ways. I'm just going off the ways I've seen them used. So I also can tell you that Plex machines generally run a little different when you're using them as a manufacturer. In other words, every guitar you want them to come out the same way versus how they have Plex machines for customers. So if you had a guitar with an issue, they might treat that guitar differently. Like in other words, just fix the issue, where I've seen some manufacturers literally just have the Plex machine just grind everything down flat and level it all down, because again, they're just trying to make everything uniform. So, okay. Okay. Paul says, "Hey, Phil, I'm having hand surgery next week. I have to have stitches for 2 weeks. Any advice on rehab and starting back up on guitar, change strings to lower gauges?" Sure. I mean, obviously, look, I've had hand issues before. A lot of us I've never had surgery. So I can't really speak to that, but I can tell you what you want to do is 2 things. First of all, good time to work your brain muscles instead of your hand muscles. So sometimes you may want to work on theory and stuff like that when you're feeling a longing for your guitar. Like, hey, I want to play my guitar, but I can't. Sometimes reading some music theory, reading books on guitar is a good way to still be involved with guitar, but not physically, play. Going down a gauge of strings won't hurt at all, for sure. Maybe even 2. Go with a lighter gauge of strings. Definitely take it slow. Don't be in a hurry. Because obviously, if you do anything to make it worse, you're just going to make the situation longer. And that's some advice that I've had many times with guitar. I've gotten to the point where I know I was almost where I was going to be okay to play the guitar, but I pushed it anyways. And every time it resulted in me being away from guitar longer. So I don't do that anymore. Typo says, "Hey, do you actually need a compressor pedal for playing bass guitar?" You don't, but as a slap bass player, I would say it helps a lot. Makes everything tighter, and it keeps, especially on a bass, when you're hitting the low note can be very dominating because it's just a lot of sound and frequency hitting everybody at the same time. And then when you snap, that snap just has to poke out of that mess. Sometimes the compressor tightens that up. I have found compressors are, whether for guitar or bass, this will help everybody out with compression. I have found they are amazing. They make everything sound a little more refined and better in a mediocre amp. I want to say this like in the nicest way. It's not coming out nice. Like if your amp's okay, like to me, I would throw, nothing wrong with the amp. I'm just saying, I would throw a compressor on a Blues Junior, and it's just like, it's awesome for just making that amp tighten up and sound great. But on a really nice amp, you find sometimes you don't need compression because the amp's just, and so I find that the same with bass amps. When the bass amp's really nice, you don't need a compressor. And sometimes when I'm playing on a cheaper bass amp, I throw on compression. It's just, so I basically use compressors a lot for both guitar and bass, but generally I will use them on my cheaper type amplifiers. That's what's great about everything we have now today. You can make anything sound amazing or work the way you want it. And then a lot of times when we're paying for high-end gear and people go, is it really that sound that much better? It's not that it sounds much better. It's that it works more efficiently and needs less. It's kind of like I love the analogy, so I use it all the time. It's like the steak sauce analogy. The steak is perfect. You don't need sauce, right? So, but if the steak's a little dry or a little, whatever, a little sauce helps it. So same thing with our sound. I find sometimes when everything's perfect, it works. And when sometimes it's not, you just add a little sauce, and compression is just another sauce. Okay. Let's go to, what are we doing on time? We're doing good. This was another one that came in. I got a little dry erase board here. I got 3 questions on the dry erase board. So I did one. Now let's do the second one. The second one was Joe Bonamassa now playing digital amplifiers. So this one came up a lot this week. Again, we were like, okay, let's see if we can do. Joe Bonamassa is now apparently on tour with Tone Master amps. So what I saw, and again, I'm only going off what I saw. I thought he had like a Tweed twin digital amp, and that I didn't see was available. So if anyone can put in the comments if that's what you understand as well too. I'm going to share this with you. This one was from Guitar World, right? Guitar World. So this is it. So obviously it's a Tone Master amp. This is a Fender twin amp. So obviously this is not one I've seen out in the real world. So, a lot of people reacting to this Sadly enough, my first instinct is this is his cash grab for that. Not because I don't think he doesn't think they're good. I mean, I don't think he'd play them if they're crap. Here's what I mean by that. Obviously, he plays a real 59 Les Paul, but he has a bunch of Joe Bonamassa Epiphones. I don't think he thinks the Epiphones are crap and he puts his name on a crap guitar. I just think that he's like, this is good. If I didn't have all my money and all the available, the crazy nice gear, I'd play this. So I feel like, of course, he's going to bring those amps on tour because one, why not? It's a good way to test them and see if they're any good. And two, it's a good way to sell them. I mean, he could probably sign them at the end of the shows and be like, hey, you can buy my tour used Tone Master amps. Do I think he'll have these on tour for many years? Nope. I think once they've sold the peak of what they can sell these things, he'll probably walk away from them. Look, the reason I think that is not because he sells salt shakers and everything else on his merch store. It's because I have played all the Tone Masters, obviously not that one. And what I can tell you is I think they're really good amps. And I think that if you don't have one of the needs that they bring to the table, no one picks them over the real thing. And so here's what I mean by that. So if you take a Tone Master, whether it's a 65 Deluxe or the Princeton or the Twin or the Bassman or whatever, Deluxe Reverb, and you compare it to the real deal, if you don't go, but man, the real deal is so much heavier. Let's take Tone Master wins. I believe you. I think, yeah, you take it to a gig. It's way lighter. It sounds good. I mean, again, we're not talking about sound yet. We're just talking about functionality. As a tool, the fact that it's lighter is great. If you go, hey, this amp is loud. The Fender Bassman is super loud. The Twin is super loud. And I want to be able to have that at a much lower volume. And the Tone Master has a built-in attenuation and it can crank its, you can crank them up. Then it wins. Again, I see where it wins. It's less expensive, generally speaking, than those amps. Not a whole lot, but it is. So again, if you're on a budget and you're like, hey, I don't know if I really need this amp. And by the way, you can add these up. The Tone Master is lighter. The Tone Master can be cranked up louder, or it's not louder. It can get more gain at a lower volume, or it could just be lower volume, period. The fact that it also has IRs, impulse responses out. You can run a line out to your PA or to your recording. Those features add up and you go, this is a better purchase for me. But I've seen no one that I know personally or on YouTube, again, like me, go, and it sounds just like the real thing. It sounds really good. It's so close. It's in the ballpark of it. But never would I expect anyone with a really good ear to go, man, this sounds exactly like the real thing. It's really just, it's close. Like I told you, there's some things that it does that's strange. The Tone Masters, I think, sound great, but then they react differently than pedals than the real amps do. Certain pedals I thought were almost unbearably bad, like fuzz pedals. I didn't think they sounded very good through the Tone Master stuff. Again, but if I was factoring in all the other factors, like I want it because it's light and it's got IRs or a line out, which is IRs, and it's got, and it can be attenuated, all those things, I might go, you know what? The sound doesn't bother me that much. It's not a big deal. But when I think about someone who's got someone who hauls their gear, sets it up, mics it up, I don't think he's really like, man, this is so much better on the back of my road crew. I don't think that's something he thinks about. I also don't think he's like, man, I mean, look, he has it mic'd up. I mean, look at the picture. The picture is in itself makes no damn sense. Look, he's got a microphone in front of the cab, but it has an impulse response that you can line out to the PA that has a microphone. I'm not saying he doesn't like that. I'm just saying that's one of its features. He's not even using that feature. He's running it just like an amp. Now, there's something else at play too. And again, about usage. He also blew out his ear. Remember, this was a couple months ago. Remember, I saw him talking about the fact that he thought he was going to go deaf. Look, guys like Paul Gilbert, they have gone deaf. Dave Grohl has lost the maximum amount of hearing you can lose and still be able to hear, is what I saw in a documentary about him. So Joe Bonamassa might just be like, I needed this stuff to be turned down, and I like the Twin, and this is going to do it. Just the weird thing for me is, I would think he would run attenuation through the real amps. But maybe he does. He figures maybe in his brain, whether if he has to run an amp through an attenuator, it's not the real thing anyways. I might as well use this. But we'll learn if they make a Joe Bonamassa Tone Master amp. We'll go, well, that will kind of also paint a little bit of a picture. I don't hate this idea. I'm not like, oh man, this is horrible. I'm like, this is great. I think I've felt this way about Tone Master the whole time. I think it's pretty good stuff. I think it has a purpose. I feel like it's priced too high for what it is. That's just how I feel. I don't care. I've listened to all their rhetoric about there's a chip just for the reverb and it's really expensive. And I'm like, I just don't care. It seems like it seems like other people can make like product, if not slightly better product for less. So it obviously can be done for less. I just think that Fender prices it based on, again, when I told you guys how they do guitars, it's like, well, we can't sell a Tone Master 65 Deluxe Reverb for $799 if the real one's $1,600 or $1,800. That doesn't make any sense. So I think they just decide the pricing is just slightly below the real thing, and that's where they set their pricing. And because it makes sense to the consumer that way, you're like, of course, of course it's $1,200. The real one's $1,800. You're like, that doesn't really make any sense, right? So that's my complaint about them. Like I said, not necessarily anything else. I told you guys I really wanted to get the Fender Bassman 59. Same reason. It's lighter. It's got reverb built in it, which is pretty cool. It's got the attenuation. But I think it's like $1,700, and I can buy a real one for less used. That a real 59 Bassman. That's pretty crazy to me. It's a hard mental thing to get past. I'm buying the digital version for more than the real thing. So it's pretty crazy. Richard said he put the mic in front of the Tone Master so people think he's using them. You know what? It could be, right? It could be a little bit of theater there. Maybe it's just they did that and he's just running the impulse responses out. It's really cool. I like this discussion. You know why? It's because I've actually talked to guitar players that are touring guitar players. Now, Joe Bonamassa is a different animal. Here's why. I've said this before. When you think about touring guitar players versus the actual artist, like Slash, okay? Slash goes, I want 10 Marshall stacks or Magnatone stacks because I'm Slash. He doesn't really probably talk like that, but that's essentially what he decides, right? He's like, no, I want this stuff. This is what I want. Joe Bonamassa is like, this is what I want. But when you talk to touring guitar players, they're like, oh, my rig has to weigh this much, and I don't have, and anything I do this way is going to come out of my pocket. So they're more budget conscious. And I interviewed some country guitar players, session players, and they were talking about the fact that they only use Boss pedals. And I thought that was really interesting. And everything was backed up. So they had duplicate boards. They both had identical boards. In other words, whatever was on this board, they had a second board ready to go. And it was looped in. And I was like, oh, it's interesting that you're using Boss pedals. And they said, we do that because they don't break. And I go, oh, okay. And I go, well, I like the way they sound. They go, I don't even care. This is what they said. I don't even care about the way they sound. They don't break. And they go, because the first time your guitar cuts out in the song, the singer is going to look at you, the artist that's paying you, and they're not going to be happy. And you're like, you don't screw up because then you're replaced. They didn't make it seem like it was that scary, but they wanted to make their point, which is, right, a Slash guitar cuts out because he's going to be like, this sucks, but he doesn't get fired, So, Offbeat Bass Gear says Prince's entire board was almost exclusively Boss pedals. John Five's board is exclusively Boss pedals. So I got to meet John Five. Did I say Josh Five? John Five. I met John Five at the Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper has a teen center, two of them here in the Valley. I think there's two. It might be three now, but there's definitely two. And I did a clinic there, and he was doing a clinic there, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go see him. So I went and saw him and talked to him, and he didn't know who the hell I was, but he was nice, and we talked to me for a few minutes, and I mentioned that I like Boss pedals, and then he's like, I love them. And I said to him, my thing with Boss pedals, he got my joke, which is great. I said, my thing with Boss pedals is I love them because to me they were boutique pedals. And he says, yeah. And I said, when I was a kid, like Boss was like Transformers and DOD was like Gobots. So my first pedal was a DOD because I couldn't afford a Boss pedal. And so like all my friends, we all had DOD pedals. And like that, so getting a Boss pedal was like, my first Boss pedal I put on a layaway for 3 months. So he's like, yes. And he said the same thing. He goes, yeah, I have them because when I was younger, like they were expensive. And I'm like, yeah, I thought they were expensive. And it's kind of funny now. Everybody buys pedals that are, 3 times the Boss pedal in price, like no problem. But I go, it stuck with me forever that Boss pedals were expensive. And so I like looking at them. I like having one Boss pedal on my pedal board at all times just to physically look at it. I mean, I use them because I like them. But I mean, even if I didn't, I just want one to look at. Because to me, it represents like, you know, high quality. It's a what do you call it? It's aspirational gear to me. I look at a Boss pedal the same way I look at a Marshall. It's a thing that I'm like, wow, I stared at one my whole life, like couldn't afford it. And now having one, this is having a Marshall. As much as I love, look, the Magnetone is fantastic. These boutique amps are fantastic, but they don't hit me the same way. Owning a Marshall and a Boss pedal is probably how I imagine a rich person goes in their garage and looks at it like a Ferrari or something. Like, how did I get so lucky to own this thing? So crazy. And it's funny because especially now, you know, through this life of this YouTube world, you know, I've tried so much gear and so much gear is always here. And there's so much boutique, interesting pieces here that are, some are so expensive. It just makes my brain just not even be able to comprehend sometimes. Yet I'll still look at certain gear like a Boss pedal and think that's the aspirational gear. That's the thing that it's like my whole life. If I could just own that, I'd arrived. I'm like doing that great. So, yeah. So, okay. So, what are we going to do? Let's do one more question and then we'll do guitar of the week. All right. Funky Boy says, does Guitar Center buy used pickups? I don't know. I don't know. I should ask. They won't take them for trade value at Long and McQuaid due to the risk of the wires being cut too short. Oh, yeah. Some people are like, well, because some people are sissies about that. Short wires, not a big deal. Like I said, you can extend them out. Who cares? But yeah, I would say if they did, you would have to. I think it's a great idea. They should. I would take them boxes of pickups. In fact, I did a thing where I sold like hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating. You can go on my Reverb listing and see I sold hundreds of pickups because I was purging them out because I have so many. And I probably have a 50 or 60 sets of pickups right now to purge out that, you know, I have. And so, yeah, it'd be really nice if I could just take a box down to the Guitar Center. Let's see. Let's get out of this one and pull up this one. Okay. Okay, this one is, I got my Strat refretted because it was buzzy all over the neck after the procedure. I like that you called it procedure. It is still buzzing at the height. I prefer the strings to be. Oh, okay. Okay, so I understand what you're saying. So you like the action that way, and that's causing the buzz. Any suggestions on what I can do to lower the action? Not without seeing the guitar. Because I don't have, again, when you're talking about strings buzzing and action, we need to talk about how straight the neck is, how low that action is, what gauge of strings are on there. Think of it this way. The way I would explain it to you is if you brought it to me for a setup, there are questions, like we had a questionnaire that we would have you fill out, or I would fill out asking you, and would be like, what gauge of strings you like? And you'd go, okay, 9s. I'm like, okay. And how do you like your action? You know, and then I would have specific measurements or that I would write down, or we could just say low, you know, really low, you know, high, whatever that means to you, kind of just figured that out. But I would start seeing trends. Like if you said to me, I play really clean, like clean amps, I don't play a lot of distortion, and I like 9s, okay, and I like my action super, super low, like 0.5 millimeter off the 12th fret, I'm going to be like, okay, this is demanding a lot from the guitar, and there might be some buzzing. And I hated saying it, but we did sometimes, like, you know, the standard is if it buzzes while you play it, but doesn't buzz when it's coming through the amp, then it's fine, or at least it should be fine if you're being that aggressive. And again, there's a difference between having medium action, which to me is like 2 millimeters. That's like a medium action. And this is where, so you know, people freak out when you say that, because some people go, medium action. Understand the difference between what I would call high action and medium action isn't like 2 millimeters is medium action, is 3 to 4 millimeters is high action. 2.5 millimeters would be high action, right? But 2 millimeters, and then you could go all the way down. I've seen guitars as low as 0.25 millimeters and no buzzing, and it's just a radically amazing guitar. Most of those guitars have always been old Jacksons. Seems like really old Jacksons have just the ability to get super, super crazy. But in your case, we need to know all those factors. We need to know, what the action is, how straight the neck is, what size strings you're using, and also pickup height is going to factor it in because we don't know what type of guitar it is. So I can tell you then if you got a refret and it's still buzzing, if it's buzzing all over the place, the good news is that's not because it sounds like there's a couple high frets. It sounds like, the whole thing's a mess. It needs more setup, it needs more detail. I find that sometimes you have to bring a guitar back a couple times for adjustments. And, and this is always tough giving that advice because I've seen some techs get really mad about that. I told you the way I did it was different. Some techs would have you play it before you leave because that's the way it's going to be, where we would just write down the measurements and we would tell you just go home and enjoy it. And you had 14 days to bring it back. So anybody who has my old paperwork, you'll see it, what it says. I've done thousands of these over the years. We gave you 14 days. I think we started cinching it up at the end. It might've been 7 days, but anyways, it was still a week to 2 weeks. In the week to 2 weeks, you could bring it back as many times as you want for adjustment. And every time I made adjustment, I would write down all your numbers. And then we would guarantee the guitar for 1 year, the way it played, as long as that was those numbers. So in other words, if you played it and 6 months later, you're like, hey, it's buzzing. We would look at the measurements that out now and the measurements we made. And if it had moved, we'll just put it back to those measurements. If something else happened, we would consider that not a warranty issue because we're like, hey, something else has happened here, right? Which is why I started taking measurements, everything. I did that, all of that, for one reason only, which was during the Obama, what was it called? Cash for Clunkers. I had a truck and it was on a lease. And so I returned the lease and it was time to get a new car. And I just didn't want to buy an expensive car. I was in the mood. Cash for Clunkers. The economy was really messy. Store was making me nervous daily. Because we were doing well, but again, don't want to chance things. And so I told Sean I just want to buy a cheap used car, and I went everywhere, and there was no cheap used cars because the cash for clunkers. Everybody was trading in used cars to get them, to get them off the road, I guess. And so, long story short, I bought a Kia Soul. I'll never forget this. I went to the dealership. I walked up to the guy, the salesman, and I said, "Hey, I want to try a Kia Soul that from the hamster commercial." And I was like, "That I didn't even know I didn't even think I called it the Kia Soul." I said, "Hey, I want the car from the hamster commercial." And the guy says, "Okay." And we walked over to it, and I said, "Look." He goes, "Okay." He got my driver's license. We test drive it. I said, "Here's how it's gonna go." He's like, "Okay." And I go, "I'm gonna sit in the car right now. If I get out, then don't worry about it. It just means it's over." And he goes, "I understand." So I get in the car and I was like, oh, my head's not hitting the roof. Okay. So I buy this Kia Soul and it was cheap as hell. Probably to this date, cheapest new car I ever bought in my life. So cheap. So cheap. They gave me some ridiculous 0% or 0.1% interest from Kia. Something silly, crazy, right? The car was dirt cheap. And I loved that car. I thought it was great. My favorite thing about it was my friends all thought I was crazy because I would park it anywhere. I'm like, I don't care if it gets towed. Just park it. It gets towed. I'll go get it. I'll pay the tow. We go to concerts and I'd park in the worst places. I go, if they tow it, I'll just pay. I'm not worried about it getting scratched. I go, I love this car. I just keep driving it. This is actually a true story. I finally had it long enough to where I need new tires. I went to get new tires, and Shauna's pilot, her SUV needed tires, and her tires were insane, right? Whatever it was, I don't know what it was, $2,000, something like that. Maybe I don't know what tires cost. It was something crazy. And I remember going to get tires for the Kia, and I go, I need tires, and the guy goes, okay, and he goes, it's gonna be like $600, and I go, a tire? And he goes, no, for all four. And I go, it's $600 for all four tires? And he goes, yeah. And I go, can I get rims? And he's like, yeah. And I go, okay. And so he's like, okay, yeah, we can get rims. And he goes, okay, how much is that going to cost? And he goes, $1,000. I go, it's only $400 for the rims. He's like, no, we got a special on rims. They're small tires. It's like $100 a rim. Because I picked the rims that look cool. And I go, okay. And I go, hey, You know, when like there was this cartoon back in the day, and there was this Jeep thing, and it had bigger tires in the back and smaller tires in the front. He's like, yeah, and I go, can I put bigger tires in the back of my car? He's like, yeah. So I got bigger tires for the back, smaller tires for the front. Stupid. I'm so stupid. So I do it. It's like $1,200 for all this stuff. So I get the tires. I come back. Shauna sees the car. She's like, what is this? I'm like, I don't know. It's so crazy. It's so fun. I love this car. It's just so great. And so the reason I tell you the story is my thing that made me laugh was I needed a oil change and service on this car. So I take it to the Kia dealership. And I'm like, this is going to be horrible. So I get there and I pull up to the service thing, and they go, okay, you're here for your appointment. Cool. And they go, there's a waiting area in there. You can get yourself an espresso. And I was like, okay. And I go in there, and there's like quiet music, and there's a big screen, nice couches, espresso machines, water, sodas, everything's free. Just, I'm like, what? This is like, this car was like, I think it was like brand new. It was like 17 grand. It's like, okay. So I go, I get this espresso. I'm drinking it. This is so great, right? And there's like little mints and candies and things and chips and all these things. I was just like, this is so crazy. And then they call my name, and I go get in the car, and I get in the car, and they go, and by the way, we washed it, right? I'm like, washed it? Like I owned a Cadillac. So I get in the car, and they got the mat, paper mat on the floor, and they pull that out. And I get in the car, and I'm driving it home, and there's this report on the seat, and I pull it out, and it's like this detailed report of everything about the car, right? And it's like this, they checked this, they did that, did this, like all these inspections. And we get back to the store because I got to work, and I'm working on guitars, and I have this report to my left of me. And talking to a friend, I made a joke. I said, dude, it's funny. I don't even care about this car. And their service that they did is so much better than the service I do for people's guitars that they love. So I copied. That's where my guitar repair things came from. Is I copied this Kia thing. I go, that's what I'll do. I'll check all the strings. We'll wipe the guitar down. We'll clean the guitar. We'll service the guitar. We'll clean the electronics. So it's like everything we did. If we touched your guitar, we cleaned your electronics. We oiled your fretboard. We cleaned the entire guitar. We went through and cleaned everything with like Q-tips and stuff. I was like, and we serviced everything. And then we wrote down all the things. And I go, because that's it. The other thing I got to tell you, like on the last note before we go to the guitar of the week. The funny thing about that car too is I also learned the hard way that car had a what do you call it? A universal belt. So it had one belt for the whole car. So if you guys know, sometimes on cars you're gonna have a belt for your for your air conditioning unit, or for all. Some cars have 2 or 3 belts, and this one had one belt for everything. Why that matters is I was driving it home one day in Arizona. This is a very Arizona thing to say. I'm driving home one day, and there's like a haboob coming, a big dust storm. That's what we call a big dust storm. Big dust storm coming in, and the dust is everywhere. The wind's coming in. There's a giant tumbleweed coming down the road, just coming down the road, and it comes out of nowhere, and it hits. I hit it with the car, and the tumbleweed just disintegrates. And I was like, oh no, I hope the car's okay. And then all of a sudden, I had no power steering. The car, I was like, everything in the car is going to crap. I'm like, what is going on? And I pull over, and and I get out of the car, and the tumbleweed hit the front of the car. It just shredded it all up. Went inside the car and just destroyed that belt. And then without that belt, I had no power steering, nothing. And so in other words, my point is a great car, but you could take it out with a tumbleweed. So that's his downside. Okay, so now guess what? It is.
Now it's time for Guitar of the Week.
Okay, so now it's time for Gear of the Week. I know I said Guitar of the Week, but this one came from a good question. Somebody said, because I mentioned that on Father's Day, my wife took me to Guitar Center and let me buy an amplifier, or bought me an amplifier. They said, what was the amplifier? So I thought, oh, well, I'll share you the amplifier. First of all, I have to turn it on. I'll explain why I can't leave it on. Okay, so I'll share with you the amp as well and why I got it. This, what actually happened was, if you guys remember, I bought a SG that was not used. It was new at Guitar Center, but it had been damaged, and it was a whole story. Some of you guys know. And they gave me 10% off. Well, what ended up happening with that was my buddy, who is a sales manager at the Guitar Center, I'm trying not to sneeze right now, by the way. So if I mute, I might have to sneeze. Hold on. I think we're going to make it. So anyways, So anyways, he saw the podcast and he was like, dude, why didn't you come to my store and just get this guitar? And I go, I don't know. I go, I told him, what I told you guys. I was in the store, I played the guitar, it was great. And the experience was so painful that I kind of wanted to go through it, especially since I knew I was going to meet the CEO. And I think it was one of the most important things that I learned and was able to help him understand, the CEO, that it's not a pleasant experience buying a Guitar Center new gear that is damaged, right? And so he goes, why don't you return it to, exchange it at the store and get a new one? And I go, the problem is if I get a new one, what if it's not like this one? And he goes, okay, we'll do whatever you want. And I said, well, I have an idea. So I went there and exchanged that SG, so I didn't end up keeping it. And as I told you guys, anytime I exchange anything out, I always get a gift card, whether it's Sweetwater or mom and pop. It's just because it's installed in me in my head, owning a store for 13 years, when people would exchange or return things, it was a lot less painful if they returned it and got a gift card because you're like, oh, the money's not left the store yet. So I got a gift card. So anyways, I thought, what am I going to do with this gift card? And the story gets even crazier. But the short version is I bought a bass amp. So here's what I bought. I bought this bass amp. It's the Mark Bass MB58R CMD 102. It's not 102, it's 10-2 because it's two 10-inch speakers. This was actually, I learned this because it was a nightmare because they make this exact same amp in a 112 and a 115. And so they had like a 115, which stands for like 115. And then they had a 112, which is one 12-inch speaker. And then this is a 10-2 whatever, which means two 10-inch speakers. It was whatever it was like a nightmare to figure out the store. So this amp is made of what feels like compressed foam. So if you, I don't know, they won't tell you. Anyone can find out for me. Let me know. I looked everywhere online and it doesn't say what the material is other than it's man-made. It's obviously inject molded. You can tell from looking at it that it's an inject molded system. You can look here. There you go. You can see right here. You can see how this is all, everything's like this. This is all one piece and how it works. It's a combo. So there's the head. It has a 500 watt head. They sell this head as a rack mount unit, but this is built into it as a combo. And it's got the two 10-inch speakers. It's super light. This one weighs in at 30 pounds. So 30 pounds. It feels like 20. So it's pretty light. So 500 watts through two 10-inch speakers. It's made in Italy, which is cool. Cool little tidbit. You don't see that. It says eco-friendly. I don't know what that means. The reason why I say compressed foam is that I think car bumpers are made of like styrofoam, but it's not styrofoam because I think styrofoam is like they poof out. The foam expands out. Where I think compressed foam is like it's pulled in, and so it's more dense. This is very dense feeling, but it feels like a beer cooler. It feels like foam. It's pretty crazy. I was a little weary of it at first, especially since it's kind of expensive, but it sounded so good. So I thought two things. I'd share the amp with you. We'll do the Gear of the Week, and I'll share a bass with you because you guys actually helped me this week, last week telling you the story about how I don't ever work on my own stuff because I don't have time. I took the time since there was 2 days this week where Shauna was sleeping most of the day because of her eye, because they want her to sleep, so she had eye patches on and stuff. I was trying to make noise, which I still did, but not like recording music and noise. So I modded up my bass. So this is my Jazz Deluxe that I've had forever. This is a 2005, I believe. 2006 Jazz Deluxe. And I just never was in love with the pickups and the sound. I've changed it out a couple times. So what I ended up putting is some Relentless DiMarzio pickups in here. I like them. I did a video with these, a set that looks like these, but these are chrome and those are black. And then I put a Sadowski preamp in the bass. So I thought, so I was really excited. I really love the way it sounds now. So, and I love the amp. The only negative of the amp is because it's 500 watts, it totally gets quiet. It's not a problem there. It has a fan, and the fan kicks on after it seems like about 10 minutes. It's not a big deal, but for today, like watching the podcast, if I leave that amp on, you'll hear a humming sound in the background, and you'd be like, what's that sound? So let's go ahead, switch to the side cam. And then for those not familiar with this bass, there's a mute here. This is the Michelangelo Badio mute, except for I modified it, cut it, and mounted it permanently on the bass. His has a clamp system on his. I cut it off. And then this lever right here is a drop D. The bass can go to drop D. Let me unmute the bass so you know. Okay, so that's in drop D now. And that's back to E. Okay, so let's go ahead and play. So I'm running the bass active, and the mute, I'll show you how it works. There's a little lever right here. You hit that real quick, and now it's not muting. So this is the bass unmuted, and that's the bass muted. So why do I use that? It helps, muting the strings helps when you're doing a lot of slap bass and you want it to be tighter. So I'll show you some of that stuff. I'll play it unmuted, and then I'll play muted. Here's the bass unmuted. Okay, so that's unmuted. Let's go ahead and use the mute. So it just makes the snaps a little tighter. It also is really good, the mute's really good for tapping, which is what Badio would do, like Jennifer Batten. So let's go do that. So again, just tightens it up a little bit. The bass amp sounds amazing. And then of course, the drop D. All right, so that's the amp. Setting-wise, I'm running the amp pretty flat because, again, I have the Sadowski preamp. So I've been meaning to switch here. I've been meaning to put a Sadowski preamp in this bass, and I go, okay, I'm gonna do that. And then I thought I was gonna put some. I was thinking about putting some Fender Jazz bass pickups in there, and I thought, you know what? I really like those Relentless pickups that I did a few years ago as a video. So I got a set of the chrome ones, and I was like, okay, this is great. And the main reason I like these pickups, they are radiused. Look at that, the pickups are radiused to the fretboard, and that helps for here because I don't like the string to hit the pole pieces because they'll click, right? So what's nice about the Relentless is they have hex screws, so I was able to adjust the screws so that the two on the sides, and because it's really going to be on that string, the low E, or the E, that I set the screws so that they're flush with the pickup, so there's no way for the magnets to, see, like I gotta really push hard there. It's really hard to get that, do that. If you ever seen a bass player slap, you'll know sometimes you hear a click, and that click is the ka-thunk, and the ka-thunk is the string actually hitting the magnet on the pickup. So, so that's where I really like that. And especially because I do a lot of slapping, but I also do a lot of chords. So I like that. All right. And what's cool is, so today's guitar of the week is a bass. What? We should do a thumbnail. We'll use a bass thumbnail and everybody will be upset. They'll be like, how can you play bass? This is Candy Tangerine is the color of the bass. I bought this from the bass place. I told this story years and years ago about it. And I run 40 to 100 gauge strings. I used to run stainless steels. I've actually switched to the Ernie Ball strings. I don't know what model they are. They are literally the 40 to 100. So it's a little light. Normally a bass would have 45 to 100s or 45 to 105s. So I'm running it a little light. It's like a skinny top, heavy bottom sort of thing. But I still absolutely love this bass. This is my only full scale bass. All my basses are 32-inch scale or 30-inch scale. This is my only 34-inch scale bass, which is a standard scale length. So, and it's just because I like the way it plays and feels. I'm going to take a second, if you guys don't mind, and turn off the bass amp. Oh, if you guys can still hear me, watch this. I'll just show you. So I'm going to use 2 fingers. Ta-da! So it's super light. For those listening later, I just picked up the bass with that bass amp with 2 fingers and lifted it up. So it's pretty light. I'm a little nervous about the material. So, it literally feels like a beer cooler. So I kind of feel like, I don't know if it's going to take the abuse of gigs and stuff, but I really liked it. And it's kind of funny. It's funny 2 reasons. I bought it from Guitar Center because I had the gift card. But I used to not like Mark Bass as much because I used to see it as a Guitar Center only brand. I was like, I only saw it at Guitar Center. You never saw it anywhere else. And then slowly I saw it in other stores. But Sweetwater carries it now. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, Marcus Miller plays Mark Bass now. So that's another thing that factored in. Just like the Sadowski preamp, even though that Marcus Miller's with his own, Suhr brand now. He's with the Suhr brand. Obviously, he used to play the Sadowski preamp. So to me, I'm just Marcus Miller. I'm a fake Marcus Miller wannabe. So it's just all about the Marcus Miller Sadowski preamp with the Marcus Miller Mark Bass. So, but I really like it. And he said, what kind of cooler? It feels like a Playmate. Like those styrofoamy beer coolers you get at the grocery store when you're like, I didn't know we were going to party tonight. We need a cooler. Those kind of things. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. By the way, Ellen says, Phil, you're getting skinny. I gained 2 pounds this week. Not really. I think I'm only up 1 pound. So usually water weight is what it is, but Shauna couldn't go to the gym, and then instead of being like the person I'm supposed to be and go to the gym without her, I didn't. So yeah. So I'll make up for it next week. Next week I'll be miserable and it'll be fine, and I'll behave for the weekend. Okay. Let's go to the next subject, next question. We have Phil. Any good deals for the 4th of July? This is from Fernando. I didn't see a whole lot of deals. If you guys did, put them in the comments down below. I thought Musician's Friend ran some pretty decent deals, as some of the guitars are 20% off. But even then, it wasn't the deals I thought I was hoping for. I was looking at the here. Sweetwater was like none for deals. I didn't see anything in Guitar Center either. I didn't see. Oh, who's if you're looking for high end stuff, Eddie's had really good deals. They had Suhr guitars for like 25% off. That's pretty legit. But I don't think that's because of 4th of July. I think that's because the market is soft, and you can tell. I mean, obviously that's why Musician's Friend's giving you 20% off of Martin's right now, and I'm sure it's the high end guitar market is starting to feel the pinch that the lower end market was feeling first. And so the good news is that means that sometimes there's opportunities to buy an instrument that's been on your radar. The downfall, or the bad side of it for some of you guys that are like, hey, good deals, is that they've had so much time to adjust that a lot of the deals that you're seeing, they don't have a lot of inventory. So in other words, everybody's going to be able to sell through. And like I said, it's just not a lot of deals and not a lot of product, for those deals. But it's definitely still a buyer's market. And like I always say, the money will run out way before the deals ever do. So you can find deals. More 10 Guitar says Pitbull Audio has some deals. Everything I put on my watch list on Reverb on Pitbull gives me a deal. It's them. Let's go to it. The two I see constantly giving deals is, here it is, Pro Audio Star and Pitbull Audio. It's always a deal. So, I clicked on an item that was $100 off as a price drop on a product on Pro Audio Star. And then because I watched it, a day later, they sent me like another $100 off deal. So I was like, it still wasn't enough for me to move the needle. I still couldn't justify it. I didn't need it enough to justify it. And I think that's where some of the pain, unfortunately, not to go down this road, but just so you guys know, I can tell that there's a little bit of pain out there because I've obviously through the last recession in this business, I've kind of learned to see some of the signs that you see that and one of them is you start seeing the manufacturers and the retailers scold us, the customers. And I'm already seeing that. This, hey, you better buy or we won't be around, or hey, I always call that scolding. I always feel like, you're always better off if you just say, hey, look, it's a good time to buy because there's deals, come get a deal, right? But instead it's, hey, it's really tough out here and you don't know how tight the margins are. And look, I've been in this business for 21 years. The margins are tight. It's a tough business. We see companies go out of business constantly and it sucks. But I don't believe scolding the customer is the great logic. Telling the customer that they're somehow the problem, that they're not out there buying and paying enough is never going to work. It's just, look, I heard it said this way, and it was great. A friend of mine who also owned a music store said, this store made me really rich, and then it took money back from me. And then it made me rich again, and then it took money back from me. And sometimes I just realized over the years, I had to give it money, and sometimes it was going to give me money. And I didn't really hear it when he said it. What I just said to you, he just said it. It was just words. It didn't really mean anything. It's like Mom always said, don't play ball in the house. It didn't really echo in my head until my business was taking money from me. And then I was like, oh. And I think without that advice, I would have been like, I got to get out of this business, right? And instead I was like, oh, sometimes it made me money and sometimes it's going to take some of the money back. And so right now, that's what's happening. And so that's why you have to, as a business, be prepared for it. So I hope a lot of businesses are prepared for it. Because like I said, I don't see a lot of people right now pulling the trigger if there's not a real incentive. And I don't mean they have to give everything away. The incentive could just be, it's a better quality. It's a good product. It's a new product. In other words, coming out with some new products is always nice because it gets people excited, but it's got to be something. It can't be just, hey, I know it's been 5 years of just raising prices, but this is where we're at, and we've decreased, the availability of what you can get. It's got to be a little bit more than that. And also I think it's because, trying to think. I did a bonus podcast on the second channel. And by the way, thank you everybody who supported the second channel. The second channel, it's a really interesting experience for me, as I've now been told by several of my friends, which is an odd thing from friends, but even just viewers like you guys stop me in public to tell me that you actually like or prefer the second channel more than the first channel. I hear that a lot now, more. And and it's weird because I'm like, I'm on the second channel, so you like the second, but I know what they mean. And sometimes I don't even think they know what they mean. So for those of you who are curious what that means, I edit everything on this channel. And of course, the live show is not edited. It is, the live show is edited in the concept that I go into the show with, like, for instance, today, I have a clipboard with things. These are like, okay, we'll talk about these subjects. Well, obviously, this is the gear of the week. I have to construct that, this or that. So everything is like, almost like this show to me feels like Saturday Night Live. It's live. anything could happen. You guys can ask me questions live. I'm going to say dumb things live. Things are going to happen. I'm going to make mistakes, but it's not scripted. But it's been like I've rehearsed it out all week. Like these are some subjects we'll talk about. These are the guitar of the week. We'll cover some things. I'll flow through it and we'll get through there. My point is, on the second channel, because it's a lot of this content re-edited so that it's a little easier to consume. One of the things that may help you make you get a laugh out of this is I don't do anything on the second channel. So you guys know I don't do the editing. I don't do the thumbnails for sure. I don't do any of that stuff. It's all done by someone else who likes to have a poke at me in a good way. So if it has a vibe like I'm not taking myself seriously and I'm kind of almost making fun of myself, just understand two things. I'm not making some fun of myself, somebody else is, and I'm okay with it. And I get it, because sometimes I have made my own self laugh watching the second channel going, I can't believe they used that clip. Can't believe they took that thumbnail. These jerks. So it's kind of fun. But anyways, it was off topic. On the second channel, I did a bonus podcast a while back with LR Bags and Jack from PRS. And I'm going to pull up right now because I'm going to mess it up otherwise. But one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard in this industry was from LR Bags. And he said, this ties in right now, true innovation is to bring quality down to a lower cost so more people can benefit from it. It is a way of democratizing an elite instrument. And the reason why I bring that up is because in this market right now, I think what the industry still doesn't understand is that every time the market goes up and down, when it's a bull market, everybody's winning, it's great. But when it slows down and they got to work harder for your money, they forget how good so many companies, there's a lot, have made affordable instruments so good. And I love that quote because when we always talk about innovation, we're always talking about like when people go, Phil, what's the most innovative guitar? And I'm like, you gotta understand, innovation is just not always like, hey, somebody made the Floyd Rose, somebody made the spoke wheel truss rod, somebody made a truss rod at all, right? Somebody, made a man-made material like carbon fiber guitars. Sometimes innovation is somebody brought the point of a quality instrument price point down to where it's more obtainable. And I love that quote, which is, true innovation is to bring quality down to a lower cost so more people can benefit from it. And that was LR Bags who said that. And I thought this would tie in with what we're talking about right now, which is it's crazy to me how good Squiers, Epiphones, PRS SEs are getting to the point where it's not that they're as good as the high-end guitars. They'll never be as good as the high-end guitars because it's a rigged system, like I told you guys. Gibson's never going to allow an Epiphone to be the same as a Gibson Les Paul. It will never happen. But you understand, one of the things that's forcing those guitars to be good is you have these off-brand guys out there making affordable guitars, and they are throwing everything at it to try to gain market share. And that's what's great because it pushes on making so many guitars so good at better price points. And I just thought it was really cool. And I thought, it'd be interesting to see as the market, goes through its flow its flow that it's going through right now. Be interesting to see because there's so much good used gear out there and there's so many new, innovative, affordable instruments. It'll be interesting to see how these manufacturers adjust to get our dollars. And I hope they do. Like I said, I like buying gear, so I like it. So, let's see. Hold on a second. Nope. Okay. Jimmy Jack says, "Hey Phil, do you use the StewMac neck relief gauge?" Yes, I use it in most of the. Back up. I use it in every deep dive video. But in most of them you'll see it. In deep dive videos, there is a procedure that the guitar goes through in the deep dive. I decided to keep that private, so we don't discuss that. We don't even disclose it to the patrons. So every guitar goes through a process in a deep dive. Okay. And I'll just tell you why if you've noticed that deep dives have changed a little bit recently, they're going to go back. They're going to go back more to traditionally how they were, but I'll explain why that happened. There is a process. When I say there's a process, I don't mean like steps that I go through with every guitar. There is a process the guitar must go through. The guitar must be here for a certain period of time. It's put in a certain room. It's played a certain way. It's almost like my very dumbed down version of like Consumer Reports. I'm trying to be, more, for years, I've been trying to be more, less opinionated about the product and more just factual about it, and see if that helps giving people information. Because again, it's two reasons. One, it gives you the best informed decision when you're making or buying a guitar. And two, really my deep dives are really not about the review. They're about the instruction. It's like when we used to do Sharp My Axe. The idea was that I figured out that people really like to watch a new piece of gear and then they learn something. Like, oh, is that why that works? Or, oh, that's how you fix that. And then, but I've learned that they just don't, you guys as a whole, you guys are different because you're the podcast group. But as a whole, most people won't click on a video just for me to teach you how to fix a fret in. No one really cares about that video unless they have that problem. But I've figured out how to, like, I call it putting your peas in your mashed potatoes, right? In other words, like you'll eat the peas if I mix them with mashed potatoes. You'll watch the deep dive and then you learn the little tidbits from the tech tips. But the process is the same how I do all the guitars. What you see in the videos is for either flow purposes. In other words, like if you see me using that gauge in a video but not in others, it could be just because I chose other things to show you, because if there's 2 tech tips, that's going to add 3 to 4 minutes to the video. And then the video is now going to be 24 minutes. And I just know from doing YouTube how much time you can spend on any particular subject. What I mean by that is, notice none of my videos are set times. There's no video that's 18 minutes or 20 minutes or 15 minutes or 10. The video is as good as the video is. In other words, if I think the video is good, it could be a half hour. I could care less. If it's not that great, notice I move it along a little faster. The perfect example of this is I did the Martin video yesterday. I was excited about the Martin. I think some people are excited about Martin, but for some reason, I just know when I was editing it that if this video was longer than 15 minutes, it was going to die on the vine and die. So we cut down the some of the stuff you see in the video. Now, we started putting more stuff in the videos because so many people feel like they have to see it for proof. Like, Phil, did you really file that fret? You didn't show us filing that fret. And so I would start putting more in the videos. And then what ends up happening is not views don't drop. How long people watch, they disengage. They're like, he's going on for about 4 minutes on this and I don't even care about this section. So that's why I speed up I think it's funny. We don't get a lot, but you get some guys saying, hey, when I'm checking all the frets by playing them, they're like, you're speeding it up. I can't tell. You should slow that down. I'm like, dude, if I slowed that down, you would have left. No one's going to watch me for 4 or 5 minutes check frets. It's just not going to happen. So to answer your question, Jimmy Jack, the neck relief gauge is in a lot of the videos. It's always being used. I use all that stuff. That's how I get the stats, because I'm recording all the stats. But in a couple of the videos, specifically 1 or 2, I actually show you how to use the relief gauge, but it's not a standalone video. That is going to be corrected as we are going to be pushing out. This was the patrons asked for this, and so we are giving it. They asked for some of that content, the repair content, to be isolated, and so I started cutting out the content specifically to give it to the patrons, and then I decided that instead of sitting here and editing for 3 hours to give them a content, I'm going to go ahead and just recreate the content and put it out on the channel. And if it just dies in views, it just dies in views. Again, we'll space it correctly. In other words, so it won't hurt the channel as much. It's not something I'm overly concerned with anymore. The view counts on the videos. What I mean by that is, I've told you this before, if your views drop, then YouTube throttles down your channel. At this point, I just can't worry about all that stuff anymore. It's just not something I don't have time to concern myself with it. But yes, I'll make sure you get that out. It's funny is I know that's an issue because there's not a whole lot of videos on that particular tool, and it's a great tool. This one's from DMAC. Says, Phil or chat, says, I'm seeing more FMIC gear, particularly Charvel lately, coming out of Indonesia. Is this impacting future of Made in Mexico? I don't know, unfortunately, because I haven't been to the Made in Mexico factory in a while. Is it at capacity? And so a lot of these decisions are about going to Cortec to make, they're all made at Cortec, by the way. I've already been to Cortec. There's a Fender building. They make all the Fenders there. There's a Squier building. They make all the Squiers there. The Charvels are mixed just like the Jacksons and all kinds of other buildings, depending on the price level of the guitar, the quality of the guitar. So they have nicer buildings. If you guys watch my video, I show that there's different buildings for different price points. And so certain guitars are there. Cortec's capacity to make those guitars is really big, and they can make a really good guitar, and they can make it really affordable considering. So I don't know if it's an actual intentional thing to move from Mexico. I think the damage that has already been done by pushing so much stuff to Indonesia, you got to understand, I have a video that I'm trying to get done. It was supposed to come out this week, and I can't get it done. It has nothing to do with the edits. If you're a patron, if you're a $5 patron, you've already seen the video. I did a factory tour of Taylor guitars. I'm just trying to get everything approved. As you guys know, when I do a factory tour, there's certain information that sometimes they don't want to disclose to the public, and I'm overzealous about that information. So, I tend to tell you guys a lot, and then sometimes they make me back it off. And so far to date, I've never really held anything really back. Keep in mind, my NDAs are only about visually showing you. So for instance, I couldn't show you the Fender building in Cortec, but I'm telling you it exists. I was there. I can talk about it. That's not in the NDA. So if you guys ask me questions about stuff, don't assume because I didn't show you footage that I can't talk about it. I don't have anything that ever prevents me from talking about it. I don't put anything in writing like that. Usually my only logic for not discussing stuff publicly is either because it's something's about to come out and there's, and that's not fair to the company, or maybe they're a personal friend and they've asked me personally not to discuss this particular topic. But I mean, by topic, I mean, like their secret sauce, right? But when it comes to companies, there's no reason for me to hold anything back. That being said, I think I'm hoping the Taylor factory video, when it comes out, I really hope everyone at Fender watches it. I hope the whole industry watches it. I hope they understand that. I think as much as I'm friends with the Cortec guys, and I think Cortec makes great guitars, I think that companies don't understand how valuable I think the Ensenada factory is to a lot of us. I think Made in Mexico Fenders are, and Charvels and Jacksons and EVHs are really good for a ton of reasons. I was going to say 1,000. I can't think of 1,000 reasons. A ton of reasons. Quality and also uniqueness, and the fact that it's the actual Fender building. It's a Fender company. And I think there's a uniqueness there that's not in the Indonesian factory. Cortec is really good at making guitars. There's no doubt about that. But if you really see the level that PRS has to go to keep their building PRS SE, if that makes any sense, because everything gets like the Cortec kind of vibe to it. It's not hard to figure this out, right? Guitars made in the World Factory have a certain vibe and feel no matter what the brand is, right? PRS guitars in Maryland, whether S2s or cores, there's a certain vibe or feel to go to them. Employees, machinery, techniques, the factories have certain styles, and those styles, start coming out of the instruments. And one of the things about having a factory where they make all the brands, there's becomes a type of product that becomes very, I don't want to say average, but they start feeling and sounding the same. So, but my guess is that FMIC is going to be pushing more in Indonesia instruments. So for a ton of reasons, and I don't really love the idea. Athers says, hey, do you have any experience with Tom Anderson Guitar Works? I think they make great guitars. Chasing down the ideal Strat, which has led me to an Anderson. I think Tom Anderson, like Suhr, makes great stuff. I've played lots of it. I've owned lots of Suhrs. I've never pulled the actual trigger on a Tom Anderson, but I played a bunch. And then about a year ago, I was like, maybe I need a Tom Anderson in my life. And I tried to, and I just didn't connect with them. So, part of it is a lot of times if I'm looking at Suhrs or Tom Andersons, I'm going to buy them used. And one of the things that's hurt me from buying them a lot of times, I finally pulled the trigger on a Suhr, but that's really for another deep dive video like I did with the Novo, is when I look at this used price and I play it and I go, it's really nice, but I'm just going to tell you, then I go, well, I could get a Kiesel for the same price. And it's not because it's new, but I can get it any way I want. I feel like, look, if I could get a Tom Anderson spec, like I could get a Kiesel spec, not the same price, that wouldn't be fair because Tom Anderson's a lot more expensive than Kiesel. But I mean, even moderately more expensive than a Kiesel. But you got to understand, like, when I own a bunch of Kiesels now, and for the price point, they are very, very good, and I get exactly what I want. So it's really tough. It's a really tough thing to, if you're not specifically, like I said earlier about aspirationally, if you're not aspirationally going after a Tom Anderson. So I don't know. So, let's see. I'm just going to answer. I don't know the answer. Max Potter says, any thoughts on Warman pickups in UK? I never heard of them, so I'll check them out. Okay. How are we doing? Okay, cool. You know what time it is. It's going to be time. Okay, this one is from Lost Planet. It says, Guitar Center description claims used GNL S500 is USA made. Actually, Indonesian tribute model. Way overpriced at $930. What should I do? Well, don't buy it. Yeah, Guitar Center is a nightmare when it comes to used descriptions, and it's probably worse now because they use AI. That's why they're putting in all like these descriptions now. If you notice, like all of a sudden there's multiple pictures and then there's descriptions. They're using some kind of AI. They're very, very happy about it. They talked to me in depth about it, like about how exciting it was. I didn't think it was exciting. I think so far AI has been very not exciting as a whole. Again, I'm not saying negative things about it. I'm not saying positive things about it. My experience is that it's like having a C- worker. Right? I'm not saying it's screwing things up. I'm just saying it ain't adding a whole lot of value in a lot of the experiences I've had. So my point is, yeah, maybe they scanned it wrong. Maybe they put in the wrong code and AI grabbed the wrong code. It happens all the time. Guitar Center does backwards too. Sometimes they would do the opposite. They'll put a USA made as an Indonesian made and you get a smoking deal. With Guitar Center, the problem is, and I've said this to Gabe personally, the problem is they make tons of mistakes all the time. Their descriptions are off. Their pictures are off. I mean, hell, I constantly pull up Guitar Center and it's like, it says this is a Marshall amp, and then in the description, but the picture is like a Black Star amp or something, or even like sometimes it'll say it's a pedal, but then it's a picture of a guitar. I mean, there's all kinds of mistakes. But you just gotta kind of be savvy about that. The good news is that when they ship you the wrong thing, if you go that route and you get it, you can return it because they have no questions asked return policy on that stuff. So I'm not, but yeah, it sucks that they do that. Why it's tough is two reasons. One, if you look at the massive amount of stuff they're uploading, I personally think they should take more time. I think it would result in a better situation for them if they could just increase some of the quality. But also, here's what's tough. It's kind of like when I was talking earlier about how Guitar Center and Musician's Friend don't open guitars and look at them, but Sweetwater does. Well, Sweetwater also can't figure out used gear correctly, right? They don't have that. So Guitar Center, it's like when you think about Guitar Center and how they sell used gear, I got a lot of complaints. So do you, obviously. But it's hard when you can't point out the company that's doing it better. Like when I think about an individual company at that level, I don't know who's doing it better than them. So it's not to excuse their screw ups. It's just to explain like where do you put the reference at. Like I said, you got to be a little cautious with Guitar Center use because sometimes it's bad. Okay. Oh, it's weird. That wasn't a few weeks ago. That was years ago. Haley says, hey, a few weeks ago, you said something about John Mayer switching out some of his PRS pickups for DiMarzio pickups. Did I say which DiMarzio pickups they are? I don't know. So let me tell you how that went down. So a friend of mine who works at PRS, was privy to that information. In other words, John Mayer had mentioned that he had an old set of DiMarzio single coil pickups that he absolutely loved. And I got the impression that that PRS was going to look at those pickups, John's pickups, and try to either reverse engineer them or take a look at them again. That's kind of the impression I got. That's just the impression I got. What happened was John Mayer was talking to DiMarzio pickups about that. If you notice, John Mayer's always wearing DiMarzio straps, guitar straps. And I guess he was talking to them, and not about making pickups, but talking about, his straps. And I suggested to the DiMarzio guys, I said, hey, if you get a chance when you're talking to him, ask him about what DiMarzio set of pickups he likes of yours, because I'd be really curious to know. And they, being professionals, were like, we're not going to ask him that. they're like, that's not what he's here to talk about, so we're not going to talk to him about it. So I don't know the answer, is what I'm trying to say. I wish I knew which the ones they were. I would love to know, because they would be obtainable, is what I'm trying to say. They would be affordable and easy to get. Planning good times says, investing question. Oh no, I'm not the guy to ask. It seems like pedals are appreciating more than guitars right now and less risky. Do you think guitars are appreciating less than pedals right now? I don't think investing is, first, don't take investment advice from me. That's first. So this isn't advice. I don't look at any of this as an investing thing. I told you, I'm really horrible at that. I'm the first, like those guys that are always bragging, like, I bought this guitar for a nickel 30 years ago. Now it's worth $1 trillion. I am not that guy. I am the guy that I buy it because I wanted it and I could afford it, and I justified it sometimes with some kind of acquisition, like it's a deal. Sometimes the deal is thing that helps me justify something, like, hey, a lot of times a deal for me is about the fact that I know from just historically with gear, not only myself, but watching so many of you guys over the years, that not everything sticks. So in other words, it's like, you're going to buy 20 guitars to get the one over time, or at least play 20 guitars. And so sometimes when I think about pricing on gear, it's more about what do I do with it once I've had it and I don't love it, and what's kind of financial pain is going to come from that. But if you notice, a lot of times when something starts going up in value, I get rid of it because I'm not investing in this stuff. I don't have any kind of like investment mentality when it comes to gear. It's not something I believe in is a good idea as a whole. I think that you should buy what you love, and you should be realistic with a perfect example of this advice. I take my wife's advice. She's smarter than me. She will tell you this. Absolutely, she will tell you this. She'll say, she doesn't even care how much I spend on a guitar or an amp. Actually, I take it back. She doesn't care what I spend on a guitar. She doesn't care. People ask her all the time, like, oh, and she goes, I don't care what he does. There's no price limit. She actually says this as I'm quoting her. As long as I can pay the electric bill and the bills, I don't care what he spends on guitars. She said that for years. Keep in mind, when we were poor, I never bought anything. So, she understands that if there's no money, I'm not spending it anyways. She did a bonus podcast. It's on the second channel. Somebody asked her, have you ever had to eat top ramen because of the guitar she bought? And I'm kind of quoting her. She said, if we didn't have money, Phil never bought anything if we didn't have money. He's never justified any purchase. He has to have money in savings. I have to have money in savings to justify anything. And then I still have to get rid of something. Because again, it's just, whatever. Call it your poor trauma, whatever you want to call it. But the important part of this is she doesn't care what I spend on a guitar. But she starts caring a little bit on amps. Why? Because she knows amps don't really hold value very much, and they're hard to get rid of physically because it's hard to ship and get rid of. But I've told you guys this many years ago. She absolutely cannot stand when I modify guitars, which is where Sharpen My Axe is, where all my modification videos came from. If you notice, the videos are always not about modding the guitars. It's about how you can modify a guitar and then remove all the components you did and not permanently modify any instrument. Perfect example is I told you I modified this bass because I put this Michelangelo Badio unit on here, and I screwed it right in here, and I cut it down and put it in here. This bass I've had since 2006. This bass I've had for 20 years. At this point, I know with my wife, when I put new pickups and a new preamp in it, she knows I'm keeping this thing forever. I've had it for 20 years. I'll have it for 20 more. And so she doesn't mind. If I buy a new guitar tomorrow and I start dumping in hundreds of dollars in a product into it, she gets very upset very quickly because she knows that's where you lose a lot of your money. Now, of course, that's if I do permanent modifications. She knows if I take the stuff out, it's not so bad. So what I'm trying to say is none of this stuff has ever been an investment for me. And so I always caution people, be smart with your money, be prudent. In other words, make good decisions that, so you don't lose a lot of money, which is why another reason I don't like high-end guitars. We're talking about Tom Andersons and Suhrs, Novos, all those guitars. They are made for people with disposable money who don't have to worry about not seeing that money come back. So I'm okay. Like, my favorite thing in the world, like if you told me like a purchase that I never stress about, made in Mexico Fender anything, used. If I can buy anything made in Mexico Fender used, I know exactly what it's worth. I know what it's going to be worth, and I don't really stress about it so much. So that's what I'm trying to say. So like I said, I owned a Klon. I bought a Klon for hundreds of dollars. I sold it at $1,500. They're worth $5,000 now. I don't go, oh man, I lost $3,500. I think, I got rid of it when I was at 15. I wasn't using it anymore. I bought a TS10 pedal, Ibanez pedal, as you guys saw. I talked about it a few weeks ago. I bought it out of Smoking Deal from Guitar Center, and I demoed it to you guys on the this or that. And you agree with me that the Maxon for like $75 was just as good, if not better. I'm selling that thing. I'm not going to keep it. There's no way. It's $400. It's worth $400, and I'll let it go. So I guess that's my point. I'm not wired that way. The only thing I will tell you is there is some gear though that I'm not in a hurry to get rid of because I know it goes up in value. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not really like thinking of it like an investment. I'm just thinking like, okay, I bought it and I know this particular gear, maybe because it's a Gibson or a Fender or a Marshall or, a Martin or, something like that. It will not so much appreciate, but there's a point where it's why be in a hurry to get rid of it right now? It's going to be worth more in 2 years. So I'll just get rid of it when I get rid of it. So that's just where I'm at. And I always say that because I just don't want you to think. I know it gets confusing, and I always, and maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. But there's so many YouTube channels now that I find a lot of times when I say something, people go, they confuse what I say with like another channel with another channel with another channel. Like a perfect example of that is people go, I know you once said you don't review gear you don't like. And I go, I've never said that. It's not something I think. I hear people say it all the time on their channels. I review anything that I think is interesting or I think you guys think is interesting. The only time I don't review something is that when it makes me miserable or I think it's so bad that it's all opinion. What I mean by that is this. I have done reviews where they're negative about product because technically the quality was bad. Like I could detect as a technician for, decades, there's something wrong with this instrument. I need to convey that to you. But if I personally think it sounds like crap, that's not factual information. Like I said, if a car seat's not safe and I was reviewing car seats, I would tell you. But if I thought the car seat's color was the ugliest color ever and I didn't like anything about it, I wouldn't necessarily do the review because the only information I could give you is I hate the color, and that doesn't tell you anything, right? Again, that's just my opinion. Let's go ahead and do...
And now it's time for this or that.
Today's this or that is different. It's a different video, different style. It's not going to be a pedal. It's going to be, I'm going to be very vague, and I got to hide what it is from you. Let's go ahead and turn on the light though. Okay, so I almost want to tell you what it is, but I'm not gonna. I will tell you that you're going to hear acoustic guitars, and I want you to just take in what you're hearing. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun for me to try it and do it. Let's go ahead and do the poll. And this was, I'm doing this or that today because of someone asked me a great question, and I was able to reach out to the company, or Shauna did, and we were able to borrow a thing so you can hear. Okay, I'm going to start with this one, and I will go into detail once you guys hear it, what it is. Let's go into my this or that screen. Look, there it is. Okay, I did not. Here, put that there. Okay. Okay. So I have the mic. I'm going to move the mic real quick. We're going to play the guitar, and then we'll try the other guitar. We're going to be A-Bing the two guitars. What's great about this is I'm using my mic. You're going to be hearing what I hear in the room. And let's go ahead and start the poll. We're going to do this or that. Start it. Starting with this. Here's this. Now, what's great is, now I have to put it over here and let you guys not see. I practiced this earlier, which is very tricky. You can see, by the way, if you see a headstock or something like that, none of that matters. Nothing matters as long as you don't see the whole thing. Okay, here's the next one. Here we go. Okay, so I want to do this. We're going to go right into the poll. And we're at 58, 60 votes. Let's get to 80 votes. You want me to do it again? Anyone want to do it again? I actually don't want to because I'll reveal a little bit to you guys and then we'll go back into it. So right now, I see 59% are picking this, which is the first instrument. I know I didn't move the pick. I apologize for not using the pick. Okay. Let's do it one more time. We'll do this. We'll do that. This is that. And then I'll go back to this. So here we go. Okay, so that was that. And now we're going to go back to this one more time. This was such, I had to set my camera angle, everything. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we have the poll. We have 207 votes. We've got 62% picking this. Let's go ahead and end the poll. And this, so interesting enough, I was really shocked. I am so shocked. I picked this as well. So you guys picked the same thing I did. So let's see what it is. It's not guitars. So let me start with that. Okay. I know it gets confusing the way I talk. This or that. Okay, so now, to make life easy, we're talking about that. So what was the that? That was the Yamaha Transatlantic Acoustic that I reviewed a few weeks ago. You guys may have seen this. What the Yamaha Transatlantic is an acoustic guitar that has two actuators, one in the back and one in the front, and then has effects. And if we go here, let's go to the side cam. Okay, move my coffee cup. If we go to side cam, you'll see this is the mic, and it has built-in effects. So right now I'm running delay and reverb. Okay. So that is, and like I said, nothing is plugged in. You can plug this in. If I plug in the acoustic amp, you'd hear the same thing. But remember, there's actual devices, actuators in this guitar, making the guitar have reverb and delay. Hear that? Okay. Now, why is that important? Well, someone asked me, have I ever tried the Tonewood amp? So the Tonewood amp, interestingly enough, is made here in Arizona. And so Shauna talked to them. So this is a Journey acoustic. This is just an acoustic that I have here that was sent to me by Journey Guitars. This acoustic sells for about $900, and it's, I think, pretty comparable to the Yamaha guitar in its style, finish, all this stuff. What you were hearing is, this is the Tonewood amp. The Tonewood amp uses a magnet, okay? It's a little box, and then this, I'll show you. Let me switch cameras here. And then what is here, let's actually go to the full view. What you have here is this device with all the effects. This is the actuator right there. So the actuator, magnetically, there's a device that goes inside the acoustic, goes magnetically on there, and the actuator then all of a sudden makes this guitar, you have to put the output of the guitar, this guitar has those same kind of effects, reverb and delay. Now, what's interesting is I actually think the Yamaha's effects are bigger sounding. Probably because it has two actuators. I feel like there's more reverb, there's more delay. And I thought, oh, there's no way this guy's gonna win, this Tonewood device, okay? So let's unplug this. I thought there's no way the Tonewood device would win. And the reason is because it's not as loud, okay? Not as big sounding as the two actuator unit that's in the Yamaha. Now, somebody asked me this because I've done a bunch of these guitars. Inya makes one. I think Inya is the best deal on the market at $200, and it has this kind of same effect. Lag has one, and there's a couple of the companies I reviewed. You can see them too. All the companies I reviewed before all sound like this. In other words, quality of the Tonewood amp unit. I think the Yamaha is the only one that sounds different. When I say different, because the fact that it has two of these actuators. What actuators are is it means this is the part, this goes on, this touches to the body and turns the body into a speaker. On the unit, it has a USB cable, and you plug it in and it charges up. It has a lithium battery inside of it. And then it has delay, reverb, and chorus, and it's also Bluetooth, so you can actually play music through it, just like you can with the Yamaha unit. And it comes with there's a magnetic claw that you need that goes inside the acoustic, and that's what's holding this on, because again, like I said, it has magnets, okay? That's the important part. And then you can run your guitar output into the input of this, and then you can run this out to an amplifier. What is funny about this is when I A/B'd them, my first instinct was, wow, the Yamaha sounds so much bigger and better. Bigger meaning more reverb. But what I realized is the Yamaha is like almost too much, and I actually tried to dampen it back, and it was almost hard to get it not as intense as this. And I thought overall they sounded pretty darn good. Now, something to know is the Yamaha is $1,400. This particular model, they do have a model that's like $899. The Tonewood amps, I didn't look. Tonewood amp, I know it's sold at Sweetwater. This unit is $310. So this is the unit, and that's here, I'll show you. This is what comes with it. This is that claw I was talking about. See, there's magnets on this side. This goes inside. You just reach in and put it in there. You have to loosen your strings, and then it magnetically holds this, and it comes with a cable and a pouch. So the reason why this came up was somebody asked me if I tried this. Well, I have a video 8 years ago of the first version of this. And the first version did not have the rechargeable. It ran regular batteries. This is rechargeable. It did not have Bluetooth. This has Bluetooth. And this also can do all that stuff where you hook it up your computer and you can change stuff. But in the menu itself, I was able to go in there. You have reverb, delay, and chorus. And just literally, I hold down the reverb. And then the reverb, there's a medium plate, a large plate, a large hall, medium hall, small hall, so there's large room, medium room. So there's definitely different effects. You can edit everything in the parameters on this thing. So for $310. So why that came up was somebody said, do I really have to buy, that was the question, do I have to buy one of those acoustics that does all that stuff, or can I buy this Tonewood thing? And then here's what happened, and this is why I try to stay away from just blurting out crap. Because my first thought was, well, the Yamaha has 2 actuators, and actually, since I've played them all, I thought the Yamaha sounded the best. So I would say, yeah, you can buy the Tonewood for $300 and add it to any acoustic you want, including a carbon fiber acoustic, because I actually like this most in my carbon fiber Emerald guitar. You can add this, but it's not the same. And then when I was doing this today, what I learned is, yeah, it's not the same, but it's actually pretty damn good to add to that. So I just wanted to give you the 2 things. I was shocked that you guys picked this. I thought I picked it because, like I said, I thought it was subtle in comparison. But I thought for sure you guys were going to pick the Yamaha, that. So super shocked. So, all right. So now you know that's an option. They sell them direct. You can do them direct, or you can go through Sweetwater. I don't have an affiliate link set up with Sweetwater, so if you end up getting one, I'll put one when I timestamp everything. So that way, if you buy one from Sweetwater, the channel gets like almost 4%. So something like that. So if you use it, great. If not, like I said, if you can find a deal, I always tell you guys, always, when it comes to affiliate links, if you can find a better deal, take that deal, because like I said, the discount you get that puts money in your pocket is way more than these companies would ever pay me. So I'm kind of more like thinking the logic for me is always like, if you're going to buy it anyways, why, you could support a channel for the same price of getting it from the retailer. But if you can save money, then you keep your money, because that's best for you. And like I said, it really, in the grand scheme of things, affiliates are they're just not very lucrative for channels. So they're just something to add to the thing. David says, hey, Phil, the guitar just had more bottom end for this. Just sounded way better. Sure, they are different sounding guitars. I mean, there's going to be that angle too, but keep in mind, it's tough, right? It's a tough thing. The Journey did a really good job with that acoustic. Like I said, it's a really, really cool guitar. Maybe we'll have to do a deep dive of it. And it says, what guitar was used for this? Okay, so the guitar, let's just show you that. So Journey acoustics. So the guitar from the Journey acoustics is Journey available at Sweetwater too? No. So this model is the JCD 422 JCD 422. Oh, there it is. Okay, here it is. It says available at Sweetwater. It's back ordered, out of stock. So this is the Journey. So this sells for $1,000. Now keep in mind the Yamaha is $1,400, but also that comes with the reverb and everything. So this guitar, believe it or not, with the Tonewood amp is $100 less than the Yamaha one. But this one is their Comfort Dreadnought. And why don't you go here? It has a contour here like my Taylor. And then it has a little bit of a contour on the backside too. So it makes it a little bit thinner on the top. A little thinner this way. Feels really good. So it's thicker on the bottom. So look at, see, it's thicker on the bottom than it is on the top for comfort. So it's all designed for comfort. It's a great guitar. I think it sounds fantastic. So, and it's got a little cool little inlay right there. Snowflake. So, but that's Journey. Okay. Let me go back. I lost all the screens I need. Okay, before we go, is there anything else? This one's from, I'm going to say Gage Gibson says, the Yamaha is too much. I can't imagine a real world use case. Seems like something that you just use to impress you in a store and quick impulse buy. There is a little bit of impulse buy to this technology, the having reverb delay. What I will tell you is 2 things. And they're very at odds. When I've demoed, I don't want to say all, but I've demoed so many of these guitars, like I said, that do this effect, this echo, reverb, delay, chorus effect, it turns into acoustic. When you first get it, you play more than you ever played before. It's like you just can't stop playing because everything sounds like a real recording. It sounds, like I said, it just sounds produced and great. And it's kind of like Halloween. You feel like a professional. You're just playing and it's like, this is so much fun and you can't stop. And then it has a point where all of a sudden you're just like, not that you're tired of it. It's just, it's not, and it might be because they're gimmicky, but it's because it's just, you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've done that. And then you keep coming back to it later. But you do go through periods of time where you just don't need it. So I would imagine, here's what I would tell you. If you ever had an acoustic that had the system in it, what I will tell you is you will play it a lot and then you'll just turn it off. And then when I got the original Tonewood amp, I played it so much. I just remember I couldn't stop playing it. And then the batteries went dead. And then I found myself going, I'll just play with it. I don't need it. And then I went months and months and months, like 6-7 months and didn't play it. And then I finally put batteries in it and started playing again. Again, it started playing a lot again. So there's a double-edged sword to this. Like I said, it will make you play a lot more and you do enjoy it, but then you do tire of it. Because at some point you just go, I really don't need all these effects. Especially since, keep in mind, you can plug into an acoustic amp that has all, reverb and all those effects, and you can just be through your acoustic amp. The whole point is to be, just grab it and go. I will tell you that one of the things that made these things fun, is because they use the lithium batteries in both this and the Yamaha. So you find that you're charged up and ready to play for hours and hours and hours. So just something to think about. Like I said, it has its Riot, I think that's what it is. Riot Bass says, how does it sound with an acoustic bass guitar? I've never tried it with an acoustic bass guitar. My concern would be it's not as very loud, because acoustic bass guitars tend not to be that loud. So I think, I don't know how loud this thing would work, this Tonewood amp would work on the acoustic bass, but it might work really good. And then, okay, let's see. Just looking to see if there's anyone who has questions about this stuff, because that's one of the cool things we can do about this is answer questions. Gray-haired newbie says, I like the idea of the Tonewood amp box because it's not inside the guitar. I agree. It is, like I said, easier if you go, okay, I'm kind of bored of this, and now it goes on its way, right? One cool thing about this, and so, and with all of them, is they're all Bluetooth speakers. They don't sound amazing, okay? You're not going to blow anyone away, but I have done this, and it's a little cheesy party trick, but sometimes it's cool to have music coming out of one of your acoustics. It is kind of cool. Like you got, it's just cheesy. Everybody's like, is there music coming out of the guitar? Yeah, it's my Bluetooth speaker. What? And that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's like I said. And that's why I thought when somebody asked, so I want to thank Shauna for talking to the Tonewood people and letting us check this out and show you guys. So I got to tell you, I don't know if this goes back or if this stays. I didn't ask Shauna. I didn't ask her. She didn't tell me. So we'll see. If it stays, I'll keep using it in other videos. And if it goes back, it goes back. But at least we all got to check it out. Okay. How heavy is the Tonewood Gizmo? I don't have my scale, so I can't tell you. I wonder if it says on line. I feel like it's a pound. So I would say it weighs, oh, you know what? I have a thing that weighs, it's less than a pound. I don't know if, okay. It's stupid that I have this. I have a brass block that weighs a pound. so it's less than this 1 pound brass block. So it doesn't feel much less. So it's less than a pound. So it adds a pound. Let's go on the Sweetwater website. It's usually pretty detailed. Oh, look at that. It says weight. Ready? 0.54 pounds. So that's half a pound. Is that how I'm reading that correctly? Right? Half pound. That would make sense. Because like I said, the brass block was a pound and it was obviously less. So, and there's no, the keep in mind though, what it's not telling you here is those magnets inside, how much that weigh. That's not very heavy at all. So it doesn't add a whole lot. Like I said, either way, it's less than a pound. It also has chorus, reverb. Oh, it has tremolo too, but I've not found a whole lot of joy for the tremolo effects in those, all of them. They're all fine, but nothing to write home about. Okay. Dougal Dog wants to know if it'll float. It will not float. I would not put any of this near water. Okay. So now you know. I'll go ahead and time it, stamp everything. I hope everybody has a fantastic 4th of July. Since it's the end of the show, let's do announcements. I posted for the patrons. I did not post the channel members yet, but I posted the bonus podcast, the coffee hang, and the clinics for July. So they're in the chat. So if you guys want to check those out, if you want to become a Patreon member, you can go to our Patreon page and check out the different tiers and see if there's anything that appeals to you. Basically, how it works is that's how this the show is sponsored. It's sponsored with patrons. And then as a service back to say thank you, we have different tiers and we give you different, time. We give you time for time. You can hang out or you can do a bonus podcast or a bonus clinic, what have you, to say thank you. So I just want to make those announcements. And then also you get to see previews. Like, for instance, there's some videos on there. And sometimes the previews are pretty cool because, like, for instance, there's 2 versions of the Taylor factory tour on Patreon right now. And who knows if either one will ever be the final one out. Because, again, stuff like that, it goes through committee, to see if there's anything they need to tell me. And so a lot of the patrons have seen this in the past that they'll tell you, they will happily tell you in the chats there that it's funny what companies, you think it's all nefarious, but the things that sometimes companies ask me to remove from factory tours is very silly. It's never like the don't tell them the secret. It's always like, there's a pencil in the background and we don't want that in the background. I always tell you, the guys, this I'll just always tell you because it's the end of the show. The Cortec, the only thing they asked me to remove was there was a video footage of an Ibanez guitar being painted in the paint booth, and to this day, it's in the video. I was allowed to put it in the final video that you see, but you only get to see the back of the guitar, not the front of the guitar. So it's just the back of the guitar being painted. You see it from the back. And to this day, I always just assume, I have no real idea why they didn't want it. Maybe they just didn't want Ibanez. And by the way, when I say Ibanez, not the Ibanez logo. It wasn't like you could tell from the shape that it was an RG. They just didn't want an Ibanez in there. And again, I'm allowed to talk about it. I just wasn't allowed to show it in the video. So for some reason, Cortec did not want you to see that it was an Ibanez being painted in that booth. But you could see that in the video, you could see it's there and it's being painted. They just didn't want the front of it being shown. So silly things. I don't know. And then because it's 4th of July weekend, you should get a little bonus. The funniest thing I've ever had removed. Funny enough, only 2 things I've ever removed from factory tours I thought was interesting. A lot of the G&L stuff was removed, which was the discussion of what Fender wanted from G&L and the Fender stories, which, by the way, I've talked about now publicly many times about how they sued Leo Fender's wife and all that stuff. They may remove that from the video. I still have that footage to this day. That stuff's on there. No NDAs because the company doesn't exist anymore. And I'm allowed to talk about it, but I wasn't allowed to show it in the video. But my favorite thing, which I won't tell you who, but one time I did have a company say, "Can you remove this? That's an OSHA violation." And I was like, I understand. And so, I don't mean like a safety violation. If you guys haven't seen how crazy it gets, in that particular video, there was something that they could get a potential issue with OSHA because of the procedural part of it. So they wanted it removed. And I was like, okay. They didn't know, I guess, the whole, and then this is why it's funny. Usually when I do the factory tours, there's 3 cameras going at any given time, and they only focus on me because that's usually I'm holding a camera. I'm always holding a camera and talking to them. They focus on me. In this particular case, they don't understand that there's usually someone like Shauna or somebody else doing B-roll, and then usually a third camera doing something else. So what happened in this particular case was the B-roll camera was facing the other way, and that's how they caught this violation. And they're like, please don't. And what's great about that is I didn't have to remove the scene. I didn't have to remove anything from it, which is why we do multiple camera angles. All I did was change the angle back to the angle I was holding. So that one was funny. Oh, and since we can talk about, because again, no NDAs with G&L, one of the things that happened in the G&L factory video was actually really funny. Was we were walking and they said, "Hey, before you leave, we want to show you something." I said, "What?" And they hand me this guitar and they go, "Check this out." And I go, "Oh, this is cool." And they go, "Yeah, it's our new nitro cellulose lacquer finish." And I go, "Cool." And I go, "I thought you couldn't shoot nitro in California." And they go, yeah, take this out of the video. So I go, okay. That was funny. All right. Anyways, on that note, I want to thank all of you hanging out. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. For those in the U.S. having 4th of July weekend, and for everyone else, I just hope you have a fantastic weekend because it's a weekend and you deserve it. And I'll let you guys know next week how Sean Azai is doing and how everything's going. And until then, thanks for your time. Know your gear.
The Know Your Gear podcast.